Nice to meet you.
What makes you like it? No, we're not.
But anyway,
More models.
take a look at it. Learn how to navigate through different years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're just looking at that book with them.
We're going to call this meeting to order. I am Commissioner Hunsaker. We have a new hearing clerk, so we've been advised to say our name every time we speak tonight. Everyone, that's FYI. All right, so can I have a approval of the minutes, or motion to approve the minutes from the April 12th meeting?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Anyone?
Oh, Commissioner Harmon?
Commissioner Harmon moves to a second.
Commissioner Burns, I second that movement.
All right, we have a motion by Harmon, a second by Burns. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, so first item of business tonight is the action on case number AMD 2203. Oh, looks like we're removing this one from the agenda. That one's being pulled off the agenda, and we don't need to continue it or anything? Okay. All right. Okay, next up, case number ANN 22000006, a request for annexation of 1.74 acres, inclusive of 3 strips of land, parcels R34089010C, R34090010, and R34089010B, lying adjacent to Mansley Ranch number 1 in the Mason Creek Train with a zoning designation of R1. The applicant is required to extend and complete the major pathway and landscaping from the current west termination point to Middleton Road. Such properties are located 480 feet north of the intersection of Middleton and Highway 2026 on the west side of Middleton Road. All right, back forth.
Well, hold on a second, Commissioner Hunter. Do we need to vote on that one that's being removed?
Oh, sorry. Okay. All right, can I have a motion to remove action, case number AMD 2203 from the agenda?
Commissioner Burns, I motion to remove it.
Commissioner Harmon, second it.
All right, been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, now case number ANN 22. Thank you. I apologize. Apparently, I'm rusty, so I forgot to read the opening statement. Do I need to read it? Okay. All right. I apologize. This is the regular scheduled meeting of the Caldwell PZ Commission on June 14, 2022. We serve in both a decision-making capacity and an advisory capacity to the mayor and city council. There are 2 types of public hearings that this commission conducts. The first is a legislative hearing whereby we formulate recommendations on certain land use requests. Our recommendations are then forwarded onward to the city council who makes decisions on legislative matters. The second type of public hearing is quasi-judicial in nature, meaning that the requests are specific to a parcel of land. We are authorized to make decisions on requests for special use permits, variances, preliminary plat time extensions, and planned unit developments that do not involve the subdivision of land. However, any decision we may make tonight is by no means final. Anyone that believes he or she has been aggrieved by our decision has the right to file an appeal to the city council. On quasi-judicial requests that involve the subdivision of land, rezones, and annexation, we are authorized to only make recommendations to the city council, who will make the decision. The hearing procedures, as required by the Idaho Code, are as follows. Staff will first present a report on the application. The applicant or the applicant's representative will then present a summary of the request. Testimony of those in support will be taken, followed by testimony from those in a neutral position, followed by those in opposition. We will allow the applicant or applicant's representative rebuttal. After the rebuttal testimony is given, public testimony is closed, and no new oral or written testimony will be allowed unless the members vote to reopen testimony. There are time limits for public testimony as follows. Applicant, 10 minutes, in favor 5, neutral 5, opposed 5, rebuttal 5. We accept oral and written testimony from those in attendance, but only if you have signed the sign-up sheet to speak available at the front of the room and you've been sworn in, although we are no longer requiring people to be sworn in. When testifying before us, you will come to the podium, state your full name and address, and acknowledge that state your full name and address. We ask everyone to treat all parties with fairness and respect. We will not tolerate any outbursts, clapping, whistling, booing, or jeers. We also ask everyone to turn off your cell phones. We are a volunteer commission and receive small compensation for our efforts. We are charged by law to keep a clear record of the proceedings, consider factual testimony, and to stay within the city's and state's rules and regulations. We thank you for your courtesy to us and to others as we move through the process. And now we do a roll call.
Commissioner Hunter.
Here.
Commissioner Nelson. Commissioner Benoit. Commissioner Commissioner Harmon.
Here.
Commissioner Boucher.
Here.
Here. All right, and then do we have any disclosures by any members for conflicts of interest or something? No. All right, now with that, we are ready for the staff report, so I apologize.
Thank you, Commission. Emma Hill, Associate Planner, 621 Cleveland Boulevard. Tonight, staff is asking for the consideration for annexation of 1.74 acres across 3 parcels along the back of Mandalay Ranch for the Mandalay Pathway. When the Mandalay Ranch development was originally approved, this pathway was proposed to be adjacent to the creek within the creek easement. However, the Bureau of Reclamation informed staff that due to the topography and the meandering bank, that this pathway would not be allowed to be in the creek easement. The property recently changed ownership, and the current owner wanted to ensure that the development was compliant with the conditions of approval in the approved time extension that was approved last year in 2021. This application for annexation is compliant with current zoning standards and the comprehensive plan, and staff is recommending approval. And I will stand for any questions.
I have a question. Commissioner Boutros, I noted that there appear to have been 3 small parcels that were created to accommodate this need. Was the plan at one time to run this required pathway on the easement with a strip of private property belonging to the southern parcel still remaining on the north side?
Not to my knowledge. I believe it would have gone with Mandalay Ranch, but I'm not positive on that.
Because the 3 new parcels look very strange that they appear to have been created for this purpose. I don't see any alternative to the assumption that there was an intent to use the easement with a strip of somebody else's property still on the north side of that. And I'm glad that this turned out this way, but I just wanted to understand what the previous condition was.
The previous condition the pathway would have been in the creek easement, and that is why the Bureau of Rec came back and said that would not be allowed, and that has also been a concern for other pathway easements, and they're looking more into that. So the Bureau of Rec is trying to ensure that these pathways are in the creek easement.
So my understanding is the distance from the center line of the drain north for the easement is 35 feet, and the width of that new property then is 55 feet. That leaves 20 feet of property that belongs to this subdivision north of the drain, and that they're gonna use that 20 feet for this pathway. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so who owned that 20 feet before?
I am unaware.
Okay, all right, thank you.
To the applicant. Yeah, the applicant. All right, any other questions for staff? Okay, all right, we have the applicant.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Jay Walker. I'm with Kinley Horn. And appreciate this time and appreciate Emma's explanation. Thank you for being here tonight. I'm sure there's many other places you'd rather be on a beautiful spring evening or summer evening. Feels like spring because it's so cool. I read my office at 849 East State Street, Eagle Idaho 83616. Commissioners, like to answer some of those questions and have been involved in this project from the beginning. So what we're here tonight to do is to request annexation of that 1.74 acres and request an R1 low density zoning. If we go in a prior preliminary plat extension condition, voted on by council and approved, they asked the developer to construct the Base Creek Drain pathway from the eastbound road at 19 Block 1, Mansley Ranch Phase 1 on adjacent parcels. Those three parcels, as noted, was owned at that time by Caldwell 94 LLC. And AG Essential Housing Multi-State 2 LLC owns it at this point, in accordance with pathway requirements. And I've noted those requirements in the lead exhibit there, as well as noted the development agreement condition 42, which lines out the typical section for that regional pathway completion for the pathway, multi-purpose pathway plan of City of Caldwell. On the next slide, I just note that we agree to staff's conditions here. All except for the last one, I just didn't quite understand what staff was referring to if they are approved by the city staff, city engineering department, what specifically would be addressed that was granted by the city that we'd be responsible for that is not in compliance with city code. So I didn't quite understand number 8, but I'm sure we can work through that. And they also asked us to beware of floodways that are running along the bank of Mason Drain. And we are, as noted by Madam Commissioner and the commissioners here, we're well outside of that 35-foot easement as well as the bank of the Mason Creek Drain. We will do our improvements outside of those flood zones, well, the floodway and the easement for Mason Creek Drain for the BOR letter. And then the building permits, there's not going to be any building permits. In fact, here's a drawing of the improvements. It's consistent with phase 1. So lot 19 to the northwest, it's already been constructed. It's in use with homes built. And I can quickly advance here to the recorded plat on phase 1. And I believe I can point, maybe. Where's the pointer on this? Oh, it doesn't have a point. Oh, okay. So on the southern boundary of those lots south of Red Mountain, all those are constructed at this point. And lots have been improved. And, so going back, Madam Chair and Commissioner Bochers, this preliminary plat was approved back in 2006, early 2000, started in 2004. And I think out of sensitivity to the farming activity that was going around this property, the previous owners used that 55 feet to park their equipment. Because there was the mason drain that separated it from their farming activities, it was cumbersome, and when it came time to record this plat, they were anxious to sell off that strip of 55 feet. It's mostly encumbered by the 35-foot BOR easement, so they couldn't do anything with it. Their farming activity had ended at that point, and they were in negotiations with people purchasing the properties to the south up against the hard corner of Chinden, US 2026 and Middleton Road. So initially back in 2000, early 2000s, there was sensitivity and wanting to preserve the operations of the farming. They parked their hay wagons there, they parked their tractors there, and they kept some harrows and discs. So the owners didn't touch that ground. And it wasn't till the city's condition and some other things, conversations with your staff and your engineering department, that it became apparent that that was not only not usable by those people, but it would complete the pathway that was part of the original multi-use pathway plan. And BOR does have an easement on the north and east side of Mason Drain of 35 feet and 85 feet on the south and west side. So any and all of our improvements, meaning the 8-foot pathway and the 5-foot landscape buffer, would all be outside the BOR easement, not encumbering their maintenance and operations of their ditch. Not that they've ever cleaned that portion of the ditch, by the way, but in case they ever have that inkling, they can do it. And then, as far as the flood zone, there's no floodway. You can see on our plat indication of the AE zone, which means it's a floodplain that has not been studied. There's not been any hydrology or hydraulics done. And we can improve in that area as we maintain its existing elevation and or submit an elevation certificate to be reviewed by your engineering department, which that's what's been done on all those houses that touch into the floodplain, the AE zone. So I can confidently say that we are helping the developer, the ownership, avoid any disruption to the BOR easement, and we are managing the flood zone, floodway, or the floodplain and staying under the floodway. So, so tonight we're just asking for the completion of that required condition that planning and zoning and city council placed on us on the extension, and wanting to annex this 1.74 acres. So I guess back in the days, really it should have been Caldwell 95.74, not Caldwell, well, whatever, 94. They named the property because that's how many acres they purchased, but it sounds like they should have done this in the first place and included it in the original plat, but they were being sensitive to farming activities, and they did not do that. So now it's owned by a different entity, and we would like to include it. And I do want to approach the city and just say that the owners of the property are willing to dedicate and donate this pathway to public use. We would want it as public, open space, not to be developed, but strictly used for a regional pathway and common area. So if the city is interested in accepting a donation by the owners, they would gladly provide this pathway area to you.
That sounds like a separate.
Yeah, I'm just bringing that up on the record so that city staff and mayor and council and you as commissioners can address it.
But it has to be used as a pathway
Yeah.
to meet the condition, to meet the development agreement.
Well, not only because it's a pathway and needs to meet the development agreement requirements as well as the time extension plat condition, but it's also 35 feet of it is within the BR easement. We cannot build or plant trees. And if I go back to our design, you'll see that all of the manicured grass and trees are within the 7 feet between the southern property boundary and the pathway. They're not in the BR. We can't have not only any of the pathway, but no plantings within theirs. So anything south and west of the 8-foot asphalt pathway would be natural fescue and whatever's on the bank. They've asked us to improve that. So I'll stand for any questions, and thank you for your consideration of our annexation and rezone and zone.
I have one question, Hunsaker here. Does this belong, will this then be part of like the HOA, or who will maintain this pathway? I mean, obviously you said you could like donate to the city, in which
Right.
case I think the city would, but short of that, would this belong to that subdivision and the subdivision HOA would then
Correct.
do that? Okay,
Yeah, it would be included into the overall plat, and the HOA
okay.
would maintain.
It'd be part of that
Mhm.
property, okay. Commissioner?
I have the exact
Oh,
same
good,
question.
okay.
Oh, good.
Great line. All right, any other questions, Sue?
So, Commissioner Byrne, so what would there be any type of other barriers or anything? Because I read in there that it's very, shallow-sided drainage ditch, so there's like no way, if somebody falls in, there's no way for them to be able to get back out easily. So would there be any type of boundary or anything to stop people from going over into the easement?
So the houses on their southern lot boundaries have a wrought iron fence.
So for the walkway?
But on the walkway, there is a highly, a vegetated area with brush and trees that line the Mason Creek drain, but similar to the green belt running along the Boise River. Yeah, if somebody wants to fight their way through the brush and get down to the water, they can. There's nothing that stops them. But there is a unmanicured buffer and brush and trees that are before the water's edge.
Okay. And there's no requirement from the city to have, I know sometimes in, like within the neighborhood, if it's in the property, there'll be a requirement, but there's none in this situation.
There wasn't a part of the DA. Were you asking me that or staff?
Just a,
Oh.
no, just code to require something. Oh, okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Oh, thank you for your time.
We need to enter PZ 1000 in as an exhibit. I'm entering PZ 1000. It's a record, thank you. All right, let's see, we have one person who has signed up to speak, he signed up to not speak. Mr. Grubb, do you want to add anything?
That's me.
Oh.
I'm just an interested neighbor.
Okay.
We live on.
If you want to speak, you can come up and speak in the microphone.
Everything, I'm just gathering information, I'm happy to hear it.
Okay, all right, thank you. And no one else has signed up to speak. So with that, any other questions for staff or any discussion? Or I guess we need to close the, if there are any other questions, we need to close public testimony. Have a motion?
I make a motion to close public testimony.
Second.
Commissioner Byrne, I second the motion.
I have a motion from Commissioner Harmon, a second from Commissioner Byrne to close public testimony. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, any discussion? Looks like they have to move
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, can I entertain a motion to,
I make a motion to, for the finding of facts and the conclusion of law. budget in this one. I really don't want to. I make a motion to approve the comprehensive plan analysis.
For a second. All right, thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Harmon, second by Chris. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Commissioner Harmon, I recommend, what am I trying to say? I just lost my mind. Accept the findings of fact and the conclusion of law.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Harmon to accept findings of fact and conclusions of law, and a second by Commissioner Boutros. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay.
Commissioner Harmon, I recommend, based on the findings of fact and conclusion of law, the Caldwell Planning and Zoning Commission hereby recommends to the mayor and city council that case number ANN 22-000006, a request to annex approximately 1.74 acres inclusive of 3 strips of land, parcels R340890110C, and R3409010, R340890110B, lying adjacent to Mandalay Ranch, number 1, and the Mason Creek Drain, with a zoning designation of R1, low-density residential in Caldwell, Idaho, be approved with the conditions of approval in section 10. And that's 10.2 to 10.5.
Thank you. We have a recommendation by Commissioner Harmon, a second by Commissioner Boutros. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Boutros?
Yes.
Commissioner Byrd?
Yes.
Commissioner Harmon?
Yes.
Yes. All right, motion is, the request is approved. All right, thank you. For instrument 200702503, agreement amendment will provide for additional solutions, modifications, and conditions specific to the new proposed development plan. All right, go ahead, staff report.
Madam Chair, it's Roman, planning director, University of Caldwell.
I don't know if your microphone needs to be turned up or turned on. Can't hear you.
I just want to give you a brief history of this property. In 2006, the request was for planned unit development, PUD, for the front parcel, which identified were, I think, 6 lots. Those lots were supposed to be used for commercial use. The back portion, which is currently existing, was for residential, pretty much in the townhouse setting. In 2019, I received a phone call from some of the neighbors. And the reason why they called is because a developer was moving some dirt around in the area, and they were wondering what was going on. I checked the ordinance and checked the application, recognizing that this was a PUD, commercial in front, residential in back, and that under city's requirements, you can move dirt within a development without actually having a project that you get approval on. So the neighbors were calling me quite a few times for about the next 4 or 5 months. And the result, in talking to those who were responsible for the property at the time, is that Celeste did it into to the north. Or actually that would be the south. Celeste is supposed to connect to Moss Road at some time, but it wasn't connected at the time of the conversations I had with the neighbors. I explained that no development could go on the property until there was connection to Moss Road. Their concern was Celeste and the intersection of Celeste and Highway 55. Because there wasn't a signal because of the speed, because of the change of grade. They were concerned about the multiple traffic accidents that they said that they were seeing. I did not visualize any traffic accidents. I did go out in that area and notice the movement of traffic. But as I've told them, they would have to come before this body to make any changes. In the meantime, we received a presentation through a roundtable, I would say maybe about 4 or 5 months ago, with some discussions about some multifamily at this location, whereby we told the engineers they would have to come again before this body and request a modification of the PUD with the development agreement. So that's where we are today. Questions? Thank you.
Emma Hill, Associate Planner. So today, Kinley Horn is requesting a special use permit with a development agreement amendment for Celeste Place. The proposed development will include 72 multifamily units on approximately 3.3 acres along Celeste Avenue and Moss Street with an R3 zone. The 72 units will be comprised of 18 one-bedroom, 36 two-bedroom, and 18 three-bedroom units. The applicant is proposing amenities such as a community playground, a tot lot, picnic area, community playground, picnic, barbecue area, and fenced-in dog park with 11% qualifying open space. The applicant is also requesting an amendment to the development agreement of Dakota Crossing, as Director Matt mentioned. The previous development agreement included the subdivision to the south. The applicant is requesting that the amendment be modified to remove the parcel from the standards of Dakota Crossing 3. Staff did receive submittal from Compass regarding the 2050 development review for Celeste Place, which indicated that this development would reduce the performance of stress levels for pedestrians and cyclists. It also found that it would reduce the convenience for the nearest bus stop, public school, or public park. We also received a letter from the Valley View School District in response to this development. However, since then, we did work with the developer who communicated with Valley View School District, and there has been a verbal agreement, also over email, that between this development and the one that is being presented next, Karcher Village, Kinley Horn will donate $500 per door for the unit. So that issue has been resolved since the previous letter that is in the staff report. The Planning and Zoning Department did receive multiple concerns from the public. We have 3 in the staff report, and then 2 were submitted after the staff report was submitted, and those were what were handed out just now. Staff found this development to be in compliance with city code and the comprehensive plan and is recommending approval, and I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Husker. So I thought I read somewhere, and now I'm not seeing it here, there's just, that maybe it's the next project, this highway corridor, in the comp plan is highway corridor?
That's the next project. They're very close to each other. They're, a little over a quarter of a mile.
Okay, and orient me to this, like which way is Karcher versus,
Karcher, so this is, yeah. Karcher is to the south of this, so up at the top, that's Moss Street and Celeste, yep, that's Moss, and then it runs along Celeste, and if you go down Celeste is where Karcher Village is, the next, application, and then Karcher Village is on Karcher.
so it's north and then south,
Yeah.
not east.
And this is the north application.
And, so when we have a transition in zone from R3 to R1, what is required to go between those two zones?
This is not R1, this is R3 already.
I know, but you're putting R3 next to R1, right?
Yes.
So what is required to buffer between an R3 development and R1 development? You don't have to do a CMU wall, you don't have to do any kind of significant barrier between those densities.
Certainly have my ordinance in front of you, but I believe it's 10 feet between R1 and R3, during the classification of the landscape buffer.
So when we transition from an R1 single-family home to an apartment complex,
Well,
there's no hard barrier, it's just a fence with 10 feet of landscape buffer?
well, in our zoning ordinance, it identifies that between different land uses, you're required to have a landscaping buffer. That's what you have, is shrubs and plants and things. It's a hard division.
Should there be?
Well, it depends. I mean, we see one land use from another, but the way that broadly how it's done is that when you're going from R1 to R2, R3.
At portable buildings, it looks like they are over capacity, they have no way to increase capacity, and as they also note, they fail the bond in March. So somebody needs to say where these children will go when these units are occupied.
So with this is a newer type of thing they're seeing where, developers are contributing for the development. Since it is a newer concept, this money isn't explicitly portioned to one thing, so the school could decide to use it to purchase new land for the school. It doesn't explicitly say that these have to go to the portables or, that type of, structure. What it's trying to cover is for the bond that did fail, so they're trying to start that,
Except that it appears to be wholly inadequate for the capital expenditure required to create the capacity for kids to have classrooms.
Madam Chair, Jerome, I'm speaking this time. The agreement that you have before you is between the school district and the developer. It's not between the city, so we have no enforcement mechanism at this time. As Emma mentioned, is that over the last, let's say, 3 months, since the city council has been concerned regarding the impact on the schools, some developers have decided they will contribute to the school district towards personal land or construction of buildings. Our office recognizes that that is not that's a complete concern that everyone has regarding the capacity of schools. But that is the only mechanism we have at this time.
Thank you.
I have a question, Commissioner Byrne. So these, am I understanding that these would be units that would be rented out, right? It wouldn't be like a condominium where they'd be able to purchase and own the airspace?
yes, it's not platted, they would be rented out.
Thank you.
I had an additional question. Commissioner Boutros, there was a letter from the engineering department that was included in the staff package, and they make a recommendation that this project be required to complete the land development process in the same manner as a standard subdivision, and that said recommendation be made a condition of approval of this application. So I read that, and I can't claim that I really understand that. Can you explain what that means and what difference that makes to this application?
Yes, my name's Rob McDonald. Commissioner Boutros, what that means basically is with these, multifamily, residential developments, if they come in, we can't, the way that it's phased and constructed, can get very complicated with water lines that may need to be looped all the way through, but they only want to build portions at a time. And so we have to look at it like a subdivision where everything has to function as soon as the first resident is living in one of those buildings. Everything has to be fully functional so that we can make sure fire safety requirements are met and access is available to emergency services. And so it's really just a mechanism for the engineering department to help us navigate through the development of the process without getting hung up on portions and phases that don't meet or function properly.
Is there anything in this application that needs to be changed as a result of that? Or is it okay as is?
The way this application shows here now, according to my understanding, is that the entire thing is one phase. So that means the site work would all have to be completed as part of one phase. If there was a desire to split that into phases, then when that comes in for plan review, we would review those phases and how they interact, just to make sure that there's no missing pieces. So basically, on what you showed here, there's no issue with the engineering department from a constructability standpoint as they move into design.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay. All right, looks like.
I just wanted to mention, tell me what your options are, just to roll that speaking. You have the options to approve, deny, or modify. Can't increase. So that is are your options for this evening.
What do you mean increase?
For some reason, if they want 72 units, you say, well, no, you can't have 74.
Oh, okay. We can make it a 70. Can you make it less? We can just modify it. There's not more.
Emma Hill again, you can also postpone this to a later hearing date.
All right, do we have the applicant?
Good evening, Commission. My name is Justin Christensen. I reside at 311 South Grand Street in Mason, Utah. I'm here on behalf of Nexio Capital, who is proposing the project. And then I also have my engineering team from Kinley Horn that is going to make the presentation, and then I'll be available for questions. So.
Nicolette Womack, from Kinley Horn. The address is 1100 West Idaho Street, Boise, Idaho 83702. And as Justin introduced himself on behalf of Nexio Capital. And then Anthony Newton is here, and he's an engineer with Kinley Horn. I am a planner, so like a lot of what I will speak to is the planning principles from the private angle. Nexio Capital is the developer on this project.
Yeah, I mean,
these are basically just some of the, projects we've done in the past. We specialize in, multifamily in Utah, Idaho, Texas, and projects in Florida. So we're pretty diverse in what we've done in the past and hope to put together a really nice project.
As you can see here, we're at the intersection of Moss and Celeste Ave. And before you tonight, we're requesting that development agreement modification, which takes the original development agreement that spoke to a different use type and had conditions specific to that layout, and would modify to make sure that we follow all the conditions of the staff report of this project. And then the special use permit allows for multifamily. Before we come before you tonight, we take our time and we go through a long process. So in December, we had a roundtable with city staff to understand the code requirements and the process. Then we completed our traffic impact study, and that is reviewed by agencies. And then we hosted our neighborhood meeting in March, and we submitted soon after. And that gets us to a hearing tonight. The future land use map designates the site as high-density residential. That's within the comprehensive plan, so this has been anticipated for some time on this site. The project, as mentioned, is 3.3 acres, 72 units, and then we have a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms, and the majority between 1 and 2 bedrooms, small units. Parking and access, we have a main access off of Celeste Ave, an emergency access only off of Moss. And we meet the parking requirements, which are 1.5 per dwelling unit. And then that includes 2 EV equipped spaces. As we've mentioned, we meet the open space requirements of the code, and we include amenities of the dog park, play area, gazebo, and green space. And that area is calculated in green right there. And then we are required to have a 15-foot landscape buffer along Celeste and Moss Lane, which we have. I'll add on this plan, when Compass did their review, they were probably looking at this plan, which was before survey was done on the site, and didn't show the existing sidewalks that are there. So there will be sidewalks on Moss and Celeste, so we'll meet that requirement as well. Shown here are the elevations of the site. So we're at 3 stories, and we have significant fenestration, roof line modulation, other strip materials, and landscaping. The staff report mentioned several things. We agree with all the conditions of the staff report. Talk about right-of-way dedication, those landscape buffers, and street improvements. There's talk about cross-access and traffic mitigation. So we agree with the conditions of meeting the traffic mitigation fees, or doing the design options that are mentioned in there. So that's not a problem for us. And then before I ask your recommendation, I'm happy to go over traffic if you want in more detail. We do hear the concerns about schools. Kimberly-Horn, we've worked for several clients in the valley, worked in several jurisdictions and several school districts. So we are hearing the valley and that they need schools funded. In Idaho, schools are funded through bonds. It's unfortunate, but schools are not funded along the way with development. There's not a adopted process like state law where we put money into a bucket, like many people assume we probably should. So unfortunately, that recent bond failed, and the school districts sadly are faced with what to do next. So we set up that meeting today because we got this comments on Friday with the school district, and we said, what are our options here? We hear you, we know you're paying, what can we do? And they recommended this fee. And they mentioned, the good developers who understand the impacts of development, they are paying the fee. So Nexio Capital has agreed to pay the fee, and we're part of the engineering firm. What are we paying that fee? So we agreed in writing, and that's up to the school district to do the right thing with that. So we understand that. And just for comparison's sake, we worked on obviously other projects in other areas in school districts facing the same issue. This one by West Data, what they actually do is they say this is the option to increase capacity in our school. You gotta build portables, you gotta shift students to different schools, or you gotta pass bonds. So really, most of the school district's desire is just to raise, the attention on the need for schools in the area. So we agree to that. Super minor context or multifamily project, most of our units are 1 and 2 bedroom sizes. So the impact of a multifamily project on schools is relatively minimal compared to, say, a single family development with multiple bedrooms, homes across the whole development. And then the just last thing was, you guys talked about a buffer to R1. If you feel that the buffer right now is inadequate, we're happy to talk about conditions, to increase that, with landscaping or a wall. I'm happy to talk with you. And with that, we request your recommendation of approval. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Do you have a hard copy of that you can provide us an exhibit?
I don't have a hard copy, but, I have the physical copy, for them. Sorry, the USB copy.
That's okay.
Thanks.
Commissioner Boutros, I have a question about the slide that you showed, showing the comparison between the West Ada letter and the Valley View letter. Because the Valley View School District already addressed all of those options, they have no further, property to put portables on. They failed their bond. They recognized there was no way to improve capacity. So I would request that the commissioners consider that, the problem still remains. We have not heard any evidence that somehow the children from this subdivision are going to be accommodated in a school someplace. The amount of money that the school is asking for, I'm really sorry, and maybe we need to have a conversation with them. They're not asking for enough. The Valley View School District is so far in the hole in terms of future capacity. Many developments have been approved. There's no place to put the kids, and they're asking for grossly inadequate contributions from developers. And part of it is, if you're familiar with the term Stockholm Syndrome, the Valley View School District is reacting in a way where they're grateful that some developers are talking to them when most developers don't. However, even with that, even with a cooperative developer, there's no place to put the kids. They're not getting enough money to build new schools or even to put portables someplace. And property is so expensive in the valley. It's a really uncertain issue on whether or not that's going to be able to happen. And I appreciate your cooperation, your willingness to speak to the school district, but they are in a terrible pickle. And their taxpayers are refusing to fund bonds because they associate bonds correctly with development.
Well, thank you, for that, feedback. We understand there are big decisions that have to be made, from a policy level about school districts. And we understand the cumulative impact of development. We are doing what we can to work within the system we all have and the state laws that we have, which is bonds got to be passed to build schools. So we very much appreciate and agree with several of the statements that, you said. We're just trying to work within the confines of the public process. And from the updated letter from the school district, who's responsible for, planning for schools and building accordingly, they have agreed that that is satisfactory at this time. They do outline that the only way to actually physically get kids to school is through a bond. So.
Commissioner Harmon, with all due respect, it's my understanding you said you brought it to them, and they're the ones that dictated the terms of the $500
yeah.
per.
Mm-hmm. And we did not negotiate
So,
a lower amount, which in
that's the school district doing it. They have to take responsibility for how they manage their money. I agree. So, no disrespect.
We'll have a discussion.
So, I didn't, until you put the picture, I didn't really understand where this property was. And now that I saw it kind of panned out a little bit on one of your slides. So this is on, so there is, this may be more of a staff question. So north of this, on the other side, north of Moss from this, What is that above this?
The north Emma Hill, the north subdivision is Windsor Creek, and then below that, below this property is Dakota Crossing, which is the, development agreement they're, applying to amend.
Okay, so it has a different color, that's why it's like more white, I don't know why.
This is an older map image, so that is undeveloped at the time this was taken, but
Gotcha.
Windsor Creek is
Okay.
developed now.
Okay, so that's all R1 there, and let's see.
Sorry, I can show you the map. I don't know if I have the zoning map yet, but I do have a future line.
How did this get zoned, how is this in the comp plan as R3? Was there a planned use development in there, and so they amended the comp plan agreement for that? I mean, how did that get to be R3?
Doing that, Madam Chair, of course, before my time. We got, I think in that corridor, we have, R3, we have highway corridor, which I believe is just to the, I said that property.
I don't think there's any highway corridor there, that's Moxie.
It's where the legend is.
Yeah, on the southeast, right along Karcher, sorry.
Oh, sure,
it's labeled
Karcher,
highway, yeah.
Karcher, but not on Moss,
But that's the way it is, and I don't know the history of that parcel.
No, I think it's weird that you have an R3 right tucked in the middle of a bunch of R1, and I don't understand that. The fact is that's how it is, which I think is the problem, but well, the problem is that's how it is. That's what the comp plan designates.
Do you mind if I reply to the question? You are correct, that is how it is with the R3. Typically, from a planning perspective, arterials and collectors are generally where you put your density, because those will be your most invested in roads, with the best, general access long-term. So, having high density near, Moss, which is a collector, and Celeste, it does follow general planning principles of putting that near, higher invested roads. That's, again, planning opinion.
I think for those of us that live in Caldwell, I'm not sure we call Moss or Celeste collector roads.
Officially, they are collectors.
I understand that, but I don't think we collect on those roads, so.
Okay.
I think it's bad planning, but,
Yeah.
So the 3-story, given that everything around it is R1, single story, has there been consideration for 2 stories, or,
I'll turn over to Justin on that.
We are open to, other plans. This is what, the typical design that we do, which is, these 12 and 24 units, buildings. But, we've done other projects that are 2-story buildings that might fit a little bit better in the neighborhood. That, we're open to those discussions as well. This isn't, obviously isn't finalized at this point. We're still, working through this, presenting ideas and getting feedback.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I think for the purpose of the neighbors, I think they want to have a good idea of what it's going to look like and what it's going to, what the aesthetics are going to be around their house. So I don't know, but it sounds like this is what you're materially proposing.
This is what is proposed.
Yeah.
Commissioner Burns speaking. So it would be those dark colors, the dark rooftop.
The colors are subject to change, right? I don't think those would be the final color. This is what we, renderings we use on other projects, because a lot of times we use similar, layout architecture. So those all change. Our recent projects, we've done more of the bright colors, more whites, more.
So I think that would be a better idea, since black does hold in heat and white is more reflective.
Totally, yeah, and on all of our recent projects, These colors are probably a little bit outdated. We've been more switching to the whites and the more soft tones.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Byrne, just, you are able to recommend for conditions the colors. You can condition that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Harmon, this is to staff. Does this, I don't know if we ever really got this, does this meet all the requirements in the comprehensive plan, zoning, everything?
Throw that speaking, stated that they do comply. It does comply to, the comprehensive plan. One issue I do want to bring up, though, is that we do have design review, it's a staff level design review. We have the applicant makes application to you. We tell them that they should show us what they're anticipating the design to look for, so that you know what to expect in the final product. So the idea of changing, is proper. It's still similar to what was approved by the council, by the commission. Exaggerated example would be, all the buildings are orange, but you change them to blue. That's not the same thing. And then I just want to add too, because I think, what I want to respond to this is, there are patios as shown on the drawings that I just noticed. Commissioner Hunsaker asked a question earlier about separation. As I said, we don't want fences blocking it, but the question that really comes up is balconies that are overlooking single-family dwellings. So we've had a couple of incidents where that was an issue. So, and what you could do is you could identify that certain areas may have a lower height, balconies are screened in some manner, or anything that reduces the impact of the new construction to the existing construction.
So, Commissioner Harmon, which ones of those buildings would overlook a single-family development?
Yeah, I'm happy to show the vicinity map again. So our southern boundary is immediately adjacent, single family. So by code, we meet the buffer requirements of setbacks, but it's the minimum 10, right? But if you felt like larger than that was necessary, then we could look at moving some of the buildings in the north, chunk, closer together to get the southern buildings further from the
So
single family.
both those buildings do have balconies that look out that backside?
Typically what we do if it does,
If there is a neighboring, subdivision, we would typically not put balconies on the back. So the front ones would have balconies. The other units where it's the center of the complex would have both. But, we typically, take that into consideration, and as a resident that's not somewhere like this, you don't want to overlook. So, those back units, we would not have a walkout.
But you would have windows.
Yes, that is true.
But there's several two-story houses and residential that are looking right down on a single-story house too. So I've got it in mind.
And I would just also add, the trees that will be required in that area, or you could require more of, from a 3-story height at an angle with a 20-foot tree, it doesn't have the same impact. Or we could look at clear story windows or something where those are half windows and they're only the top height, the top half. So you don't want people just like regularly looking out those windows.
I would say the no balconies and bigger trees on that back section or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Commissioner, this is Rob McDonald, sorry if I cut you off.
Just a point of clarification, Moss and Celeste are both classified as collectors. And I think that's important to note here. I know they don't look like collectors right now, but as we plan and we have our transportation plan for the future, they will be built out as collector roads, which are 3-lane roads, a lane in each direction and then the center turn lane. So that's the final build out, and that's any development that comes in along any of these collectors is required to build their half of the road to that standard.
So one other just question to clarify. So when that whole subdivision had development agreement, so this used to be part of the single-family homes to the south. That was one development agreement? Yes?
This parcel was a part of that,
And so that original development agreement, or whenever they did that, they were planning for this to be either high density or commercial?
commercial.
So they had earmarked this to be a commercial path?
Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Byrne, am I allowed to, in the modification, request that instead of it being rented, the units be able to be purchasable? Is that something I'm allowed to?
I don't know that that's a plus, because then you get a bunch of different owners, and you can have a lot of variability, and then they rent it out to other people, and I don't know, I think that's.
Jerome, that responds to the question on the record, no. You're dealing really with secession and not,
Here,
Speak into your mic.
hold it up. There you go.
The answer to the question is no. The commission is responsible for, decisions on land use and on how the units are being occupied.
Thank you. All right, thank you. We have a lot of people who signed up to speak tonight, so. Oh, yes, okay, we need to enter a few citizens. So we need to record PZ 1001, which is a letter from Jeremy Hall. That's actually supporting the project. We have PZ 1002 from Riley Talbot, which is against the project. And there's a PowerPoint presentation in this PZ 1003. Okay. All right, so, Ms. Womack, were you wanting to, oh, no, okay. All right, so, Dwayne, Rita?
Diane Regan.
Oh, I'm sorry, Diane, with the one. Did you want to speak?
I was actually gonna speak about the other one that comes next.
Oh,
I think they pointed me to the wrong one, I'm sorry.
okay, all right. All right, how about John McCain, you don't want to speak?
Same.
Also the same next purpose, okay. Ms. Simmons?
My name is Jamie Simmons. I live at 12498 Moss Lane, Nampa 83651. We'll begin by starting with, right now, Moss is not a collector lane or collector road. It actually dead ends at my property. So in order to get that pushed through to provide that emergency access, would have to go through, there would be more to do there. So before I feel like we can even push this forward, we have to even get that resolved. Talking about school districts, I have 3 kids in Valley View School District. As of last year, your average kid per household is about 1.93. So for Valley View to even come back and say, hey, if we can get $500 per kid on this, we are looking at roughly, if we're going off of average numbers, we're talking about 138 kids for this specific complex. So cool, we get $500 per door, equivalent of $36,000. That doesn't even pay for one school teacher. Like, that's a huge issue. And then what does it do for our crime rate right there?
Yeah.
Like, we're already having so much crime rate. People blow through that stop sign there at Celeste. Celeste continues forward. There's stop signs on both directions. We're already getting so much crime rate. My kids have been born and raised in that house. So now I have to worry about my kids being hit or my barn animals. Like, it's just a huge concern for us. So I am absolutely gonna oppose it. I hope you guys do too.
Can you tell me, can you get like the land map? So which property are you in? Katie Corner. It's on that map.
Right here.
Oh, okay. All right. Sure.
So this is dirt right here, so this
In
property.
your county.
Huh?
County,
Yeah,
isn't it?
a county, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Do we have any more questions for, okay. All right, let's see. I don't know what order people came in, so, Bruce Winker, Mr. Winker?
So my name is Bruce Winker. I live at 12498 Ross Lane, my wife. We've been there since '09. The subdivision north of Moss Lane there that you see all the undeveloped houses, as of I believe last Tuesday, there's still 26 homes that are not built. So you gotta imagine the kids that are coming in for that. The traffic, I don't know, I've never seen the study. I did go to these guys' meetings back in March, I believe it was, me and another neighbor. And they said they had a traffic study, and due to the traffic study, and with ITV in their 3 to 5 year plan, they're gonna make Highway 55 bigger or do whatever they're gonna do there. Right now, Homedale's not available for the traffic. You're already sitting at a stop sign for 40 minutes just across Moss Lane, across Lake Avenue, and that's not even during rush hour. So the traffic that we got going north-south on Celeste, like my wife said, they're blowing through the stop signs. I'm yelling at them constantly doing 40, 45. We got kids, we got animals, we got dogs. Yes, everybody tries to keep their animals in. It's all farmland out there. It's always been farmland out there. Horses. So if you look at Celeste, which would be just east of the property that they're looking at, you notice it narrows down. I don't know. I've been dealing with Rob since 2013, 14 on the subdivision that's north of us, the one that undeveloped, because they were gonna put this road through. We never got any information on this subdivision. All of a sudden, we just got subdivision. Now we're told they're gonna put apartments in. The area is not meant for it. The schools, you can't put that many kids in schools. Our kids have been, it seems about every other year they're moving our kids' school boundaries. So they're going to new school every other year. I mean, granted, like you said, sir, $36,000, that's what they're asking for. It ain't enough. It really not. Development land's going for $100,000 an acre. That's barely a quarter of an acre. We all know 5 acre minimum for schools because of bus parking, all that. Parking comes to mind. The gal, Nicolette, said the entrance on Mont Street is emergency access only. They're not gonna use it for emergency access only unless you put a chain across it. I can promise you that because of the old driveway that goes from Moss on the east end to where Celeste now is paved, they blow through that thing. They don't use it. We put signs up, we've asked people to slow down. I've talked to Rob multiple times. Let's do something. People are gonna do whatever they want, drive wherever they want. Unless they block it off, it's not gonna happen. And then, so you got 144 cars, or 109 cars, I think is what it said. Where are they all gonna park? Which direction are they gonna go? 55, they won't be able to get out on 55, it's not built for that. So they're all either gonna try to go down Moss or Celeste to Midway, which is not a collector road, it's a 2-lane road that's barely maintained. Or Homedale, same thing. It's not a collector road. It's 2 lanes. You're putting roughly 144 more cars on the road right there. We ain't built for it yet. Maybe after ITD does their thing, you know, we can look at apartments again. I'd be more opposed, or more willing to allow single-family homes in there than I would even 2-story apartments, multifamily apartments. Yes, it's a little bit less for the schools, but it's not a big impact. So that's really all I gotta say. We're still trying to Rob's still trying to get Moss to be a collector road. They still gotta build a bridge across the canal, and they still gotta go through our property. Right now, Celeste is 500 yards, dead end to dead end. Or Moss right there by Celeste. So it's all something to think about. Like I said, I don't think our roadway is ready for any of it yet. Our school system's definitely not ready for it. So that's what I came here to say is my 2 cents, and that's what I got. I thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Sarla, you said not to speak. Do you want to speak? Yeah, I'll speak. Okay.
My name is Christina Sarla, and I live at 16714 Hopper Avenue in Caldwell. I have a couple of concerns with this development, one of them being parking. I know stated the bare minimum of 1.5 spaces per unit, and we know with the cost of living now that even in a 1-bedroom, you're looking at either a couple or roommate situation, so you're probably gonna have 2 cars per unit minimum. So that's at least 50 cars that they're not accounting for that are gonna be parking in our neighborhood next door. Another issue you brought up with the school, I just want to point out on a personal note, I have 2 children, one who's going into 1st grade and one who's at the developmental preschool, and both of them were at Lakeview last year, and we were just informed that my son now has to go to a different school for developmental preschool next year because it's too full. So our children are going to be at 2 separate schools already. So bringing in more kids, I just worry that we're going to keep getting pushed around. And the other issue that I have concerns with is crime rate. When we first bought our house, Celeste did not go all the way through. Since Celeste has been connected to Karcher, our crime rates in our community of Windsor Creek East has increased. We've had car break-ins, and I only foresee with more people coming into the area and parking in our neighborhood that our crime rates are going to continue to rise. So that's a big concern for me.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Anthony Sarla, did you want to speak?
No.
Okay. Madrid? I don't know. Bernice, yes, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time.
Hi, I'm Bernice Madrid. I'm at 12563 Calusa, and I think we're going to have my notes on my phone. My main concern was traffic, because like they pointed out, we barely opened up the lot not that long ago. I had used it to go down to take my daughter to school. She goes to Lakeview as well. And it's easy to get out if you're making a right, but if you're trying to make a left to go into Karcher, it's impossible, like dangerous. There's no middle lane there, it's crazy. Same thing if you go north, if you're trying to make a left, there's the property that lines up on Homedale, I want to say, it's a blind spot there, so it's really hard to get out one way or another. When they did the traffic study, I wasn't aware of this until now. I wasn't aware of the March meeting. So I'm not sure if the traffic study took into consideration the CDH development that's on the northeast of that, because they're building, I don't know what phase they're at, but there's a lot of homes now, but east of Windsor Creek East. So there's a lot more traffic there, and same thing, it only, for us at Windsor Creek, we only have to left to go in and out. You don't have anything going west, unless you go down to Moss, which, again, that's closed, so we can't even use that right now. And same thing, I don't know if the traffic study also included that last phase of Hubble, which is now finishing up right
around Moss, because that's started this year, that was right? Yeah, building, so I don't know if that was also taken into consideration, all these new homes that Hope is finishing up now. The parking, the thing, I see on average of 3 cars per home in our neighborhood, so 1.5, I don't see how that's gonna cut it. And there's not a lot of parking on Moss, and we can't really park on Celeste, so I definitely see them coming up, to our street. There's new traffic spots, both on Lake and Midway. Those are the same thing for Unison, which have also kind of caused more traffic. I like it because it's safer to make turns, but now it's backed up. If you go up to Humboldt, you're backed up either way, if you're going to Midway or if you're going out to Lake. So we're both stuck there. And then the thing that they mentioned about the trees and privacy, if they use the same kind of trees that Howell uses or any other trees, it doesn't have privacy. I think 25 years. I don't see how that would help, honestly, unless they put the trees in there. That was all. Thank you for your time. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, if we could just ask the audience to remain quiet, to not have, thank you. Yes, thank you very much. All right, can we have Lynette Hoy? Now you have your time. This is your time.
Yeah, I'm one of those vocal types. I'm Lynette Hoy, and I live at 12668 Brown Street, Caldwell 83607. And I have lived in very populated areas in my lifetime, and I have seen developments go in that end up being low income, and what comes with that is incredible crime. And unfortunately, in our division, we have seen a lot of break-ins in cars. There's been things stolen out of garages that are left open for a very short period of time. And I didn't come into this area to live in an area that produces crime or leaves me in a position where I'm concerned about leaving a vehicle in my driveway. And I get really concerned about children. Children who play in our streets, and cars come barreling through there at 45 and 50 on Celeste at Moss. The gentleman is absolutely correct, 50 miles an hour. I've clocked it. I walk a lot in my neighborhood, and I walk up and down those streets, not down the dirt road though. And I make it a real point to literally map it out. And it's very dangerous. There's nowhere for these cars to go. The people that have said this already are absolutely correct. There's nowhere for this to happen. Rents are so high. She's absolutely right. We're going to have more people living in these apartments, and I'm actually scared. I'm scared. I don't want to be unsafe. I don't want my neighbor's kids getting hurt. And this is real. This whole thing is ridiculous. It's not zoned for it. It's wrong. It's just wrong.
Thank you. Leon?
Good evening. Thank you for having us.
Leon, could you provide me with your last name?
Borges. B-O-J-O-R-Q-U-E-Z. I live at 12650 Shadow Peak in Caldwell. It's approximately 2 blocks north of Moss and Celeste. I've spent the better part of my life in construction, both multifamily and commercial, and I can tell you there's several problems with this development. I made a short list on my phone, if you don't mind. I believe the traffic study was flawed. It was old and didn't consider current loading already planned to the northeast of Windsor Creek East, as well as the final phase of Windsor Creek East itself, and the future developments to the south along the 55. I believe that they did not account for that traffic. The parking situation in the proposed development is wholly inadequate at 1.5. We all know that there are more than 2 cars per house, so that's going to put north of 50 cars moving into Windsor Creek East for parking at night, as well as their guests. The exit from Celeste onto Homedale or onto the 55 both have poor sight lines and require a minimum of 4-way stop, if not a traffic signal. There is nowhere in the narrative that that's addressed. The schools are currently overloaded, as we've already heard. I myself have 2 kids, one of which has been told that they can't go to school in Valley View. The other student is special needs, so he is at a charter school. The hearing for the rezoning, which occurred in 2021, was done prior to the completion of Hubble's Windsor Creek East, and the residents there were not notified and were not able to attend. It went from a single-family zoning to a multifamily zoning, which is why we're here today. And the next one is home values. That's a hotly contested item. The viability of single-family home values already in existence and under construction cannot be assured. The last study done accurately was in 1926, which was what developed our current zoning regulations used across the country today. An attempt at that same study was done circa 2018, but the report itself admitted the value of the property could not accurately be ascertained. There are plenty of anecdotal op-ed rep reports contesting that the value remains steady or even increases. However, they are sourced by the likes of Colliers International and Keller Williams, the proverbial fox guarding the hen house. Future multifamily development and planning will exponentially compound these issues. And then how much of, if any of this property will be low-income housing. And that's already been noted with the crime wave that they've been experiencing in Windsor Creek East. I don't know how you can put 72 units right there, and then to the south directly put another 75 units. That's crazy. And then when it comes to the schools, $500 per door is a slap in the face, and Valley View School District should be ashamed of themselves for asking for that little. What's more, I disagree with bonds are being the only way to develop schools. Where I come from, schools are gifted to cities. Parks are gifted to cities in order to develop. You want to put 150 units in Irvine, California, they're going to build a school, and they're going to give it to the city, and they're going to build it with private funds. They're going to build fire stations. They're going to build fire stations and police stations. And the crime wave that we're experiencing now is only going to get compounded, and then the police department is going to be the one that gets responded to that, and they're going to be taxed. So we really need to consider what we're putting in around these communities. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, Paul, please.
Paul Hoy, 12668 Brun Street, Caldwell, 83607. People before me said most of what I wanted to say. You got another development you're talking about after this. The traffic's going to be on that same street, same issues, problems at both ends of Celeste. You know, that may be a theater, and the road that was constructed is really great, that new road that went in, but the southern portion has not been improved, needs to be improved. Moss, you got your property, it's a one-lane dirt road that's basically private, right? And so Moss, as a feeder, it's not. It's dirt to a canal. That's it. You know, 1 block long. And then this high density, people are talking about the crime that we're concerned about, and Caldwell Police is already overwhelmed, you know? And so we can't be sure that we're even going to be able to get the police to respond as the crime goes up in the neighborhood, if it does. So those are my concerns. Thank you.
Okay, that's the end of everyone signed up. I don't see the traffic. Is there traffic? Is the traffic study in?
Madam Commissioner, is it too late to speak? I didn't sign up to speak for this project, but I would like to.
No, yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Come on up.
Just come up, yeah.
My information is actually, okay. Let me do that now, or just let me speak? Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you guys for your public service. I don't envy your jobs, quite frankly. Out of full disclosure, my husband and I own the property that Justin and his, Next Sale Capital are looking to develop the next, hearing you guys are gonna have, pardon me. But I thought that it was important that I share my concerns, and comments on this project, as well as the ones I was gonna share for the project he wants to develop on our land. I've attended all the Highway 95 corridor meetings, all the virtual ones and the in-person meetings, and they were quite clear about those of us that own property on Highway 55, Mount Archer, that we're going to be stuck with having ingress, egress off of Celeste and Moss. They were very clear about that. And right now, on our property, which at the corner of Celeste and Highway 55, we can't ingress off Celeste. We can only get off Archer, which I can tell you is very difficult at times. So I just wanted to say that about the collector roads and what ITD's vision of Highway 55 looks like, because, you know, I've spoken to them multiple times. The bond issue, that's something that actually kind of near and dear to my heart. I, as a property owner, called to see if I could vote somehow for that bond in March, but because my husband and I live on our farm in Poma, we couldn't vote for that bond, which I find it really ironic that I, as a homeowner, could not vote for something that I would have voted in favor for. So I was very sad to see it pass. I would love to see it went through, because I realize the need for schools, not just in the Valley View District, but throughout the Treasure Valley, quite frankly, because the barn door has been open and the horses are long gone. So, you know, the development is here. What really speaks to my heart is the need for rental units. My husband and I have a restoration company. We have 3 of our guys. One lives in Emmett, one lives in Caldwell. He had to sell his home in Caldwell for personal reasons. He's going to have to move to Nissa because he cannot find anything. Our other guy lives in Boise. So 3 guys, one is going to be commuting from Nissa, one's commuting from Emmett, one's commuting from Boise. They all live in Caldwell. Our shop is in Caldwell, not far from these developments. These are not criminals. They're backgrounded, they're drug checked. We're a restoration company. We're in people's homes. We have to make sure that our employees meet certain criteria. So I find it hard when everybody jumps to that conclusion that, you know, people who would be occupying these units are all criminals and drug use and what have you. I don't think that's the case at all. I think there are a lot of employers who would love to see developments like this, because it's so hard to find people, you know, because you can't house them locally. The housing's not there. That's a real problem. The other, I guess that's a bad bit. I just think that we have to make decisions, and I'm just not saying this because we own that property. I'm saying this as somebody who's a business owner who's been impacted in trying to find employees and having to reach in these other areas because we can't find employees locally because there's no housing locally. I think this would bring a lot of value to the area for employees, for employers, and for the city. And anyway, I just wanted to speak to that, and I'll probably go on the record saying the same thing the next one's on. My apologies in advance, but by the way, my address for the record is 2945 First Lane East, Parma, Idaho, 83660. My name is Alma Hassan, please, Joe.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else that wants to speak? Welcome, all right.
Madam Chair, before you start, we do have to have people's names on the record. And you should be reading those from your podium.
Yeah, we've gone through everybody's name like that.
I'll make sure to add my stuff on there also.
Okay, I think this is it. I think that's what we're doing. Go ahead.
Got it. So my name is Erica Maldonado. I live at 12588 Algonquin Street. I'm there at the bottom. So, two-story houses. I like to sunbathe, just saying. That'll be me. Everyone here has already covered, of course, the traffic on Celeste. I have a new driver, and so saying coming out from Algonquin onto Celeste, even going towards Homedale Road has been scary. The speed limit on that road is 25 miles per hour, but it's another Highway 55 on Celeste right now. So to have a 16-year-old getting onto that road is tough. Schools have also already been discussed. Oh, I should say our car insurance has also gone up just because of the traffic. The traffic that's on Highway 55 and now on Homedale. There are existing homes already in that area, which really was one of the main reasons that we purchased our homes there. I mean, the goats and cows and horses that everyone is talking about that they have, we love it. And having that open space for our kids to ride bikes and go and look at the animals. So getting rid of all of that is definitely a bummer. With the road narrowing on Celeste, it would be really interesting for us to know just how that road is going to be widened, because there's existing homes on the left and property on the right, so I'm still trying to understand that. Since my home is on Algonquin and the number of units that they're proposing on that small lot, it's going to be a tight squeeze. Just with the images that they were showing, I can see the homes that are already under construction from my back window. So the space, I mean, they're probably talking 3 stories. So with that number of units. When we were building our fence on the backside, we were always told that there was, that property belonged to the irrigation department, and so that we couldn't build our fence into that dirt road section along the backside of Algonquin, because all of that was meant for irrigation. Because on the left side of the map, where all those trees are, there is a canal that goes through that area, and they needed full access into that irrigation space. They do go back there with mosquito abatement, and they'll spray periodically. So I just haven't heard anything about irrigation and how that's going to affect the irrigation for all of the subdivisions and additional access for the irrigation department to get through there. With schools, unfortunately, with my youngest son, we've already chosen to withdraw him from the Valley View School District because of the challenges. So again, it's already been said, but the effects for our family have already taken effect. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, does the applicant, would you like to have your time?
Thank you. Nicolette Womack, Kimley Horn, what was your PC address? We appreciate the conversation tonight. We appreciate the productive conversation we're having right now and at the neighborhood meeting, and we understand these conversations are hard. So we're grateful that we have an engaged neighborhood that cares a lot about what happens here. Can we get the PowerPoint back up real quick, thanks. In response to just a few statements that we know are of concern for you all as we make the decisions and came up in the testimony, there was a discussion about 138 kids was thrown out here. This project, again, is 18 one-bedroom, 36 two-bedroom, and 18 three-bedroom. it's hard to say the exact number that will come from that, in terms of number of children and personal choices of families. But I do believe it would be far less than 138. Reassignment, was discussed, and we talked to the school district about the difficulty they are having breaking the news to the parents that they have to look at reassignment. And their solution was for us to pay the fee, and they continue to advocate for the bond. So we are just leaning on their guidance, as experts in the school industry. There was discussion about, in other places, there's gifts for schools and fire stations, and other facilities through development, and that is definitely something that is done in Idaho, but at a certain project size, and we're far below that type of project size. There was some discussion about crimes. This is market rate housing. I won't belabor if renters or homeowners create more crime in a neighborhood. I think there's plenty of studies that elaborate on that, and everyone's familiar with that. But there's a housing need in Treasure Valley, as was discussed, and a lot of that has to do with being significantly behind in multifamily in the valley, especially in Caldwell. And these zoned pieces that are intended for multifamily, in our opinion, we believe they should be developed at multifamily, so we don't continue to be further behind on that. There was discussion about the traffic impact study, and traffic impact studies are prepared by licensed professional traffic engineers, and they're reviewed by licensed engineers. So I won't pretend to know all the intricate details of a traffic impact study, but I'm happy to defer to the experts tonight if you have questions. Emergency access on Moss, there will be a bollard there, so that will not be physically accessible. And then lastly, there was discussion on irrigation on the south side. We are not familiar in the title report with an irrigation easement, but if one came out of somewhere, we will respect it and react accordingly and move landscaping out of it, and that would feed into our site. So we're familiar with that. We appreciate all of the discussion and the great questions, and just would encourage any, unique solutions and conditions. We're happy to give new plans before we go to city council, so people can see the impact of those conditions. And we appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Commissioner Harmon, I wanted to ask, that was what we heard in one of the things about low income. Can you give us a rough idea of what rent will be in these? Very generalized. I just want to see if we're really low income or...
These are market rate apartments, so, that's gonna be dictated with what market rate is at the time. There's no subsidized housing here, so.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're not low income housing.
They're market rate, they're not subsidized housing.
Okay.
And the problem is, in Treasure Valley, a two-bedroom goes for $1,500 now. And it's because we don't have any units available. So adding more units is the only way to alleviate that pressure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would there be any consideration for, because I guess, I don't disagree, we need more multifamily and more high density. I just struggle with, this is tucked in the middle of a bunch of single family neighborhoods. And I realize it's zoned for that, but would there be consideration for, maybe something that's a little less dense, still multifamily, but less dense, like townhouses or duplexes, or I think those are all our three categories. But something that just something that would be a little bit more about transition from a single family home down or up in use.
That is possible, and I think, a solution would maybe a two-story building versus a three-story building. But, again, at the end of the day, we really, put a lot of thought into, kind of the layout of the property. And so I think, we would consider going down to a two-story building, and so it kind of blends into the transition of the neighborhood.
Okay. you're open to.
We're open to it, yeah, I mean, we
think-
have to, you know, obviously it's gonna come
I
down.
mean, it needs to pencil out for you, and I
It needs to
understand
pencil
that.
out, the land cost is so expensive
Right.
now that, you know, you have to maximize what you're putting in there to make the project work at this point.
Because I think the fact is that is the zoning, so it's, even whether I like it or not, that is the zoning there. And so it'd be nice to have something that feels a little bit more transitional
I agree.
than, you know, an apartment complex, in my opinion.
Perfect, thank you.
Did you have a question, or?
I have a question for Seth.
Okay. And then I wrote down a couple of things, and this may be a question for staff too, but I'm gonna ask you guys before you don't get too comfortable. So what road improvements are you gonna do with this on Moss? Are there road improvements that are required with this?
Anthony Newton, I'm the engineer, Kimley Horn. I believe on Moss and Celeste with the current construction that is built out on this particular site. If not, as Rob mentioned earlier, we would be required to build our half to meet those requirements, so including curb gutter and sidewalk, which, as I mentioned, there is curb gutter and sidewalk out there now. I'm not positive if that is to the correct width. I know that on Moss Lane, the city has asked for us to add a dedicated right turn lane on the Celeste. That is not pre-existing at this time, so at a minimum, we would do that, and if widening still required, we would do that as well.
And there's no access to this property, only emergency access on and off of Moss. There's only one access, which is out on Celeste.
Yeah, right there at the top, right under the Moss Lane label is the emergency.
That's emergency.
Yep.
And that will have
A bollard or a gate. It will not be open. I believe that's a city code that we have to barricade that with some sort.
I got a question for Rob Strawman. Is there anything in the future on connecting Moss, either over the canal or is there any plan for that?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Harmon, I appreciate the question. Just a kind of a quick rundown here, and something just for what it's worth, just for the benefit of the commission. A lot of these roads that are built out here are built by development. The city does not come in and build roads, that is very unusual. And so when development comes in, they come in and build these roads so that there's circulation. The one exception to that is this section right here of Celeste, and the city recognized the issue with a single access point down at Karcher, and recognized that we needed to come in and make that connection there so people in Dakota Crossing at least had a secondary option to get out of the subdivision without having to pull out onto Karcher Road. This crossing here over this canal is designed and it's going through permitting right now, and it is being constructed by these three developments here so that this Moss extension will connect all the way through out the lake. And then one other point I will make is this road comes down, this is a full section width here, and then it comes down to a half section that Dakota Crossing was required to build when they developed. When the east side develops, they will be required to complete their half of the road, so it will be a full road section. And so I understand as development comes in and when it piecemeals in, there are traffic issues that we have to deal with, and because not everything's getting built out at once, and so we have to deal with that. But as development comes in, development is building the ultimate road sections to alleviate in the future when everything's built out, then the traffic should function better.
And is there any, I'm sorry, maybe I'll ask you a question. Is there any long-term plan that Celeste would have a light at Karcher?
No. No.
Yeah, so let me, I can answer that question. I had a meeting with ITD a couple weeks ago, And the Karcher widening project has been accelerated. They are in design on that. And what they told me in that meeting, and I don't know if this is what they're gonna be able to do, but they told me in that meeting that by the end of 2023, they wanna have Karcher under construction, which is a multi-lane highway from Middleton Road all the way to Farmway Road. There's a traffic light at every mile street, and the half-mile streets will not have traffic lights, but they will have access control, meaning that they will typically be right in, right out, left in opportunities, with U-turn movements on Karcher for vehicles to be able to make U-turn movements along the corridor. And so the timing may be coming sooner than we expected on those improvements, and that would be a big plus for the entire area, for ITD to come in and make those improvements.
And that's by a half mile.
Yes. Celeste is a half-mile road, that's why it's classified as a collector.
We also have that diagram, if you pull a PowerPoint of the Karcher intersection, what's been shared by ATD on their website. To keep going all the way down, or I can do it. So, this is in their, ITIP improvement plan, and then this is the design that they've shared. So this will prevent, people, taking a chance, to cross all those lanes, and they'll tackle Karcher 2 lanes at a time.
Commissioner Boutros, I have a question for staff. If this special use permit was denied, what would the allowable uses of this property be?
It would still be R3 because of the comp plan, so any changes to that would require a comp plan amendment, which would be a separate application. And for comp plan amendments, the applicant would have to go through a lower hearing body and then city council, but because it's a special use, they only have to go into the lower hearing body, so it's up to you guys to decide to approve this.
So, if I recall correctly, when Mr. Matt gave his testimony early on, he described that when this was attached to the Dakota crossing, that this was envisioned as a commercial development on this property. Is it possible to revert to that?
True that. That's an interesting question. Currently, under the development agreement, that property can be utilized as commercial. Except, and this is the exception, is that code does not allow multifamily on residential property anymore. And so in residential, no.
R3, you can't have
The
high,
area
you
is-
can't have multifamily in R3, right?
Okay, the area is zoned R3, and I think this is important to recognize too, is that you can put residential multifamily in that particular area. But the question you're having is, what is the density? This is all we're talking about is density. So, whether you put in multifamily development with less density or a different type of design, et cetera. So, commercial going on to that property, I can't give you an answer on that, but I just know that originally it was supposed to be commercial as part of the PUD.
So, just to clarify, so they need a special use permit for this use because it's to change the development agreement or because it's multifamily on an R3?
Well, multifamily is allowed in R3.
It is, because of the...
The special use is for multifamily in an R3. You
Okay.
need a special use for multifamily in R3.
So what is allowed outright in an R3?
duplex,
Duplexes and townhouses.
and just duplex. Triplex would be special use, and then 4, 5 special use, and then multifamily is special use as well.
Okay, that's a good question. Okay. All right, thank you.
Draw map. Another option too is that, if you choose to request the applicant to modify, they can work with staff to come up with, another possibility, if that's something that the applicant wants, or that's something that the commission wants.
All right, any other questions for staff, or should we close public testimony? Okay, all right, have a motion to close, have a motion.
Commissioner Byrne, I motion to close public testimony.
And Commissioner Boutros, I second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Byrne, second by Commissioner Boutros. Close public testimony, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any discussion?
I am stuck on the wall of school capacity. In Valley View's letter, they asked that this be denied or postponed until a bond has been approved, so that they get concurrent building of the school and building of the development, so that when the development is complete and ready to be occupied, there is a school to send the children to. We don't have that plan at this time. In fact, if you were to take the testimony tonight as a microcosm of the people who would be approving a bond, and the fact that for their own reasons, which are multiple, they'd rather not see development. The only point I'm making is they would be opposed to voting in favor of a bond. And that is a reality that has to be considered. A plan that depends on the voters in the Valley View School District approving a bond at any time in the reasonably near future, 1 to 2 years, I think is a gamble. If you were to be approved and to build this, the school district has to accept those children when they show up at the bus stop. And if they don't have a school to put them in, then you have a real legal problem in that there are potentially legal defects in the ability to occupy the residences. The school has all kinds of legal problems because they're legally obligated to accept the children. They also are legally prohibited from exceeding the posted maximum occupancy of their buildings. So what people do when they're faced with conflicting laws is seek legal recourse. They get the courts to resolve it. I would rather not face that situation. And so you haven't been privy to all of the things that have happened with Valley View School District this year. I've watched half a dozen or more hearings with essentially this same letter from Valley View showing up, and all of those subdivisions keep getting approved. So the situation that's articulated here is nowhere near as bad as it's going to be when all of these developments are built out. In one of the letters, the superintendent listed that there were going to be 4,000 additional housing units coming in for Valley View School District. They are $133 million in debt. They have no way to build any new schools. I don't know what their legal problem, how they're going to solve that. What we can do is not contribute to that problem anymore.
We can also hold them accountable for making an agreement with the developer. That's their fault. So if they wanted to stick to their guns and do it, they should have stuck to it. They made an agreement, that's beyond us.
And it is mystifying why Valley View School District would agree to grossly inadequate measures to solve their problems.
they need to actually solve their problems.
I think,
They should have been here, they should have been
yeah.
here this hearing.
And I think they printed that letter out for every, I think you're right, they just had to say that.
I'd just like to add just a comment, there was gonna be a representative from Valley View tonight, but Nampa's, city council is tonight, so they couldn't attend.
So from my perspective, and it took me unfortunately a really long time, because I agree, I mean, I think Valley View, the fact that they made that arrangement, I feel like they sort of absolved themselves of being able to say they're against it. But, for me, and it's unfortunate it took me the entire discussion to come to the realization that this is a special use permit, that this is an R3 zoned development, an R3 zoned piece of land. And I am not comfortable going with a higher density than what's allowed in R3, given everything that's around it is R1. And I think, I mean, I would, you know, so I think what I would want the developer to put together a plan that meets R3, whatever that is, if it's duplexes or townhomes or whatever, that's what I would ask them to do that. Because I think that's the approved zone in there, and to make it higher density is, I think, given everything, given just the character of the area, the traffic, the status of the construction, the whole thing, to me, I don't know why we would go for a higher density than what the current zoning is. So that's, and, you know, I was thinking it was a development agreement modification versus a special use permit, but the fact that high density, or not high density, multifamily is not allowed on, R3, or it's allowed only through special use permit, you know, I don't feel like that's, you know, they're asking for a zone change technically, and I'm very comfortable in that area. I think if it was if it had other stuff around it, it was more similar, then I would, it would be different.
Madam Chair, Jerome Matt speaking. Just want to point of order, did you close the public hearing?
Oh, yes, yeah, I did.
You have to reopen the public hearing and discussions between staff and the commission.
Not since I closed it.
If you closed it, there's no additional testimony.
Oh, you want to talk
Well,
about it?
we've already been doing that.
I closed it after all the comments that we made, that you made.
Making comments now.
Oh, okay, all right, okay, so then open, motion to reopen.
I make a motion to reopen it.
I second the motion,
All right, good. Motion by Commissioner Harmon, second by Commissioner Bird to reopen. All those in favor?
Aye.
I just wanted to clarify that, and I'm going by memory because I didn't bring my ordinance with me, but I believe in that R3 zone, without a PUD, is up to 25 units per acre. So what that means is anything from 0 to 25, you can bring special use permit or multifamily. So they're not in violation of the zoning ordinance, which is the density that they're requesting.
Okay, so I remember we had this conversation with the comp plan about, and I specifically remember being multifamily, that it was not an allowed use in R3. I remember having that, because I was surprised. It didn't seem to be based on density though.
The comprehensive plan identifies it, pulling that up.
But I guess then why are they asking for a special use permit then?
Well, we changed the code, that's why I was gonna go back and remember.
The mic's not working again.
With multifamily, that, the opportunity to review what is being proposed. And so, let's pull this up before we comment. So in the comprehensive plan, and unfortunately, that's not in the zoning ordinance, in the comprehensive plan, for R3, is up to 25 units per acre.
And how many acres?
So the parameters is request for a special use permit, as you know, up to 25 units per acre. So an applicant could request 25, and you could say, no, you can have 20.
But it's not an outright allowed use.
Could you go to the zoning? In the zoning ordinance, it allows multifamily as a special use permit.
So it's not an outright allowed use.
Not right outright. You have to have it reviewed.
Well, I guess we both know that.
Thank you. Nicolette Womack from Chimney Horn. So in the comp plan, it's 25 units per acre for high-density residential. In the table of allowed uses, for most zones, anything multifamily requires a special use permit, and that's pretty similar across the valley. They want to look at it, have a public hearing, talk through the site and everything. So, in our opinion, there's nothing abnormal about having a special use permit. But going back to the table of allowed uses, when they say smaller, multi-family type products like a duplex would be allowed, they're talking about one duplex. If you need to put multiple duplexes in a lot, and correct me if I'm wrong, you again get put into a special use permit for the plan unit development.
It's not, Joe, I'm not speaking, it's not that it's not allowed, as Nicolette mentioned, it's reviewed.
And so what is the density of R1? How many units per acre? Up to 3 units per acre in R1?
3 units per acre.
And R2 is 4.
That is correct. And the hill.
Not the fact that this project has 16 units per acre below the 25 units per acre of the comp plan.
And Chair, my point is that if the commission chooses to, that the applicant would work with city staff, come up with another option if needed, which is.
So you're saying table this and have them work with you on something?
Yes, we are not going to be able to come up with a solution this evening. I was to work with the developer to get back with a possibly more preferred some of the issues that you spoke about regarding story structure and everything like that. Mentioned they would not put balconies on certain elevations. There's options, I believe, that we could sit down together and compatible design for the area.
Okay, so we need to decide if we want to agree.
If there's no additional questions, then that would be the time to close the public hearing.
I'll, make a motion to close public testimony. Commissioner Harmon.
Commissioner Boutros, on second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Harmon, second by Commissioner Jenkins, to close public testimony. All in favor?
Aye. So, this is a tough one a little bit. I mean, as you take in all the public's comments, unfortunately, when we have a comprehensive plan and we're meeting all the requirements of everything, you can't take property owner rights away either. So, it was helpful to hear that it's in the process of Moss Lane being connected, if there's a permit in. So that's, the school thing is tough. But I also put that on the school a little bit too, so, they made the commitment to go ahead with this, so you can't really fault them for the school going back on their deal. And we do need more housing, unfortunately. There's people looking for houses all over the place. And it's not low income at $1,500 a month. So, that's my opinion. I think that there is some stuff that needs to be done. I mean, I think the no balconies looking over, I think the trees have to be a certain height, to try to give that privacy, maybe even a little bit more of a buffer back. You know, little things that could go a long way, maybe. I guess I can't ask you a question, but I'll ask and see if you guys think of it. So, you know, I keep hearing parking in neighborhoods, but if nothing's connected, how are people parking in existing neighborhoods? That doesn't make sense to me, so. I live in a spot not too far from you guys, in a residential that did multifamily, right at the front, on Florida and 55. And nobody parks in our subdivision, and the traffic has not happened.
You guys are completely separate.
Oh, yeah, I guess
You know, the only difference I would say is, between that and this is that is up against Karcher, or it's not right up against, but well, but it doesn't have anything between that and Karcher right now, other than the business process.
Yeah.
And, which is not a higher.
At the back of it.
No, I know, but I'm like, this one has R1 on every single side of it. So I think that's, to me, that's the difference, is that, you know, and technically, I mean, that's why it's weird to me to put that zone the way it did, because, you know, you drop one use in the middle of totally different uses, I mean, that's spot zoning, other than, you know, but the only thing that keeps that, you know, for some reason I got into comp plan like that, so my issue is that, you know, I think it is zoned that way, but I would like to see it less dense, because I don't think it's, you know, I think everything around is R1, so if it could stay to R3, you know, I mean, and the special use permit, for a reason, is because there's a review process, this is the review process. And so, you know, to me, I think when everything around it is R1, it's going from 3 units per acre to 16 units per acre is a big leap in density. And it's 3 units per acre to 16 to 3. 3 units, 16 to 3, 3, 6 units, it's 3 on every side of it, and then 16 in the middle. And I think that to me is the problem with it. And that's not to say it couldn't stay at something more than 4 or, you know, 6, but that's my issue with it.
If I'm not mistaken, this is 72 housing units on 3.3 acres. That works out to 21 point something. That's it, not 16.
She understands that she said 16. Either way, 1622, potatoes.
Okay, it's still under
Yeah,
the deal.
It's still under the 25 that requires a special use permit.
So I want to talk a little bit more about Valley View. The fact that Valley View made, an agreement that is not in their best interest should not result in punishing the students. Right. If we still have the situation, regardless of what Valley View agreed to, of having a facility to accommodate the children. And no way to provide that at this time.
Okay, but we're not here to discuss the school, we're here to discuss planning and zoning, period.
Okay, so to be more to the point, the comprehensive plan calls for infrastructure and services to be provided. If we approve a development where there is no education available, then we're failing that.
But the problem is you put one house in and you've got that problem. I mean, that's the truth.
We are well past the tipping
That's what I'm
point
saying,
for
so
this.
basically, if that's gonna be our measure, it's gonna be, you basically do zero. So I think, I mean, I appreciate, I share that concern, there've been other projects that have brought that up. But I think when they go and they meet with Valley View, Valley View says, if you pay us $500, then we'll support the project. I mean, you know, we're at the point now where any new house, basically, there's, you know, every single kid that comes, you know, that's in a house in Valley View School District doesn't have a place to go to school.
In fact, that's a true statement for several approvals as well. When do we stop doing this?
You know.
But I don't know, you know.
We're not stopping, no, I'm talking about, when do we stop approving developments and allowing people to live in a place where their children cannot attend school? When does that stop?
Well, I mean, that's, you know.
I think it stops now.
I think that means that we basically don't have any other development.
Yeah,
I think we are at that point, as the entire Treasure Valley is now facing a true crisis situation in terms of providing this particular aspect of infrastructure, except that in the last hearing, which was in the Caldwell School District made a definitive, positive statement that they could.
We need to put this up for vote, or this is gonna go
Do you have
forever.
anything to add? So we have some options. We can refer it back to the city for them to, you know, tweak the design and come back with a different design, you know, that has a bigger buffer, more trees, you know, I would go lower density. We could just vote as is recommended currently, or vote as is proposed currently. I think those are the only two options, so.
I think if we vote as it is concurrently with a couple modifications, and then we can accept it or deny it.
And then if it's denied, then we go back to city council, go back to the planning department to kind of tweak the, so, I guess I can't ask you a question, that's just the process.
Yeah.
For me to lose.
In favor of it, there would have to be a lot of modifications. That's a lot of people, especially when it's R1. The fact that it is, I'm not in favor of the type of building material they have, dark colors that hold their heat, you don't need to heat them or something like that with all the houses.
That's the color of, or go with the surrounding area though, here in Idaho.
Change too,
Well, you're in the state of Idaho now, so we can't keep changing it to the state it came from. I'm ready to vote.
Okay. I don't think this project's gonna pass, so I think that we have a choice to send it back to the city for further modifications or to vote on, you know, I think those are our choices. So, I guess, you know.
Could we get a little bit of clarification on what the individual vote options are and what they mean? For example, if we vote to deny, does that mean they start over again working with the planning department? If we vote to modify, do we have to specify the conditions or what?
You can open, drum that, you can open to answer that question. But it should not be
What?
should have a long conversation on this.
Okay.
So, Mr. Boutros asked a question.
So can I have a motion to open to the city staff to answer the question? All right.
Options. Is that to deny can, refer back to staff for modifications, regards to density and design, if you do deny it, it could come back with a project that was different. Difference may be if they reduce the density, it'd be the same project.
Okay. So I would like to entertain a motion to push this project. I'd like to close answering the question. I'd like to entertain a motion to close the public testimony.
I second the motion to close the public testimony.
All right. Okay, testimony closed. So I would entertain a motion to push this project back to push this project to a future date after further discussion with city staff with modifications, including consideration for a larger buffer from the adjacent neighborhood, better landscaping, or denser, higher landscaping, and lowering the density. And, to something that would feel more transitional from all of the surrounding R1 uses to this use. Still in the high density, realm, but something lower density than what's been presented. And a date to be determined. Can I entertain such a motion? No? No one wants to push it to a future meeting?
I'll make a motion to push it to a future meeting.
Well, I would also want, again, different colors.
And the design. And the design. I mean, what I would say is I want the design to reflect the surrounding home, so it looks more consistent with the neighborhood. I don't know what those homes look like in terms of materials and, in terms of materials and colors. I mean, just because that way you're not driving through and you have sort of traditional looking houses.
I like your colors.
With modern looking apartments.
Come on, let's go. We got another one to get through too.
Okay.
We're pushing it or not?
Including the design. All right, is there a second for that? We have a motion to push it back to the staff with considerations for all those things, changes to all those things. Okay, all right, well, then somebody else make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to deny.
So we need to go through, let's go through the things.
We gotta read it.
Well, we need to accept the comprehensive plan, we need to do all this.
Which paragraph do I need to read? Page 11.
Yeah. Page 11.
So, a motion to accept the comprehensive plan analysis.
So I need to begin reading.
I motion to accept the comprehensive plan analysis.
So I move to accept the comprehensive plan analysis
In 5.1.
in paragraphs 5.1 and 5.2.
Second?
I second the motion.
Okay. Accept the motion to accept the findings of fact.
I move to accept the findings of fact, and we want to do the conclusion of law at the same time, and the conclusion of law.
Second? Any second?
I second the motion.
Okay. All right. Now you read the whole thing.
That would be paragraph 8.1.
Mm-hmm.
So, based on the findings of fact and conclusions of law, the Caldwell Planning and Zoning Commission hereby recommends to the mayor and city council that development agreement number 200616328 modifications be denied with the following conditions. I don't think we need the following conditions if we're denying.
Well, okay. All right. One. All right, is there a second for the recommendation?
The recommendation is to deny.
I second the recommendation.
Okay. Now roll call vote. Commissioner Gordon? You're voting to deny it, so no is to approve it.
No.
Commissioner Boutros?
Yes.
Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Commissioner Henson?
Yes. And now you have to do the special use permit. Actually, that was the development agreement modification. So now the special use permit.
Okay, so go through the same process.
Number, science, science, facts, and conclusions of law.
Okay, so I move to accept the findings of fact on the special use permit, paragraph 9.1.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Conclusions of law.
I move to accept conclusions of law as found in paragraph 10.1.
Second.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And
Point of order. I'm sorry, but I don't think I heard the reasons for the denial.
oh, we have to say a reason for the denial, okay.
Oh, yes.
Due to the density and the unavailability of school facilities and road structures currently, and roads. Yep.
So then, I move that the order of decision, based on the findings of fact and conclusions of law, the Caldwell Planning and Zoning Commission hereby orders that special use permit case number SUP 22-000004, a request to construct 72 multifamily units in the R3 high-density residential zone be denied.
I second the motion.
Okay, roll call. Commissioner Thornton?
No.
Commissioner Boutros?
Yes.
Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Commissioner Henson?
Yes. And again, in the same reason.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry to keep doing this, but, you have every right to identify schools. You have to relate that to the comprehensive plan. Here's the section,
So it would be the comprehensive plan section on infrastructure, if that could be.
I think it's one of the schools. I'm sorry, I don't have. But also, if that's the only,
I think it was density, I think it's, we said the density in the surrounding area.
if you have to point those reasons,
Okay.
if the applicant
It's in
requests
conflict with,
to the city council, they have to know why denied that, is related to a particular request as to be on the record.
so in the comprehensive plan, I'm not gonna be able to point to the section in the here.
So in the comprehensive plan, it's chapter 3 on schools, facilities, and transportation.
So that, and then I think there's also, there's something about, an orderly transition or an orderly, transition of density. So those are words in the comprehensive plan somewhere.
In the general assumptions, there is mention of orderly growth, but it's not a specific chapter.
Does that meet the standard?
School part is on the staff report, paragraph 206, and under the subheading public services, utilities, and facilities. That's where the state.
Okay. I think are we done with that one?
We're gonna read the comprehensive.
Did we get that?
You didn't deny or
Yeah, what?
on the special use? Yeah, it's coming.
Oh, I thought it
On the
was.
special, not on the special use.
I thought we could do it.
That's in the order of decision.
Oh.
Special use.
I thought we could do it.
Because they want it.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, man, I read that. You read it on the first part, not on special use.
Okay, all right.
Okay, I'll do it. So, I move to approve the order of decision based on the findings of fact and conclusions of law. The Caldwell Planning and Zoning Commission hereby orders that special use permit case number SUP 22-000004, a request to construct 72 multifamily units in the R3 high-density residential zone be denied.
I second the motion.
And we're denying it related to the same comp plan references as in the first one. So, all right, now we need to.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, that has been, denied, but it will go to, I guess, it will go to, that's a recommendation that goes to city council, so. All right, thank you. Okay, the next project is CTN 22-00002, and then 22-00005, and SCP 21-0005. Okay, staff report. Oh, okay, sorry. We have a lot more time here. Okay, I found it.
Emma Hill, 621 Cleveland Boulevard. So this is for SUP 22, and I'd like to mention that, I don't explicitly know the page, but somewhere in the staff report, it is mentioned as SUP 21, it is for 22. I'd also like to note that in the beginning of the staff report, this says they are requesting preliminary plat. That is also not the case. This will not be a platted development. It is all under one ownership, so there is no preliminary plat. With that being said, Kimley Horn once again is requesting a comp plan map amendment, an annexation, and a special use permit for Karcher Village. The comprehensive plan designates the site of the development as part of the highway corridor zone. The applicant is requesting high-density residential in order to construct a multifamily development. The applicant is concurrently requesting a special use permit in order to make this development multifamily. sorry about that. The proposed Karcher Village will include 96 units with amenities that include a tot lot, a pickleball court, a barbecue area, dog park, and they have over 10% qualifying open space. Karcher Village is roughly a quarter mile from the previously discussed Celeste Place, and Valley View School District also expressed concerns similar to that of Celeste Place. However, as of today, the developer has reached a written and verbal agreement with Valley View School District. That's once again $500 per door, and this is with Celeste Place and Karcher Village. The development is compliant with city code, and staff is recommending approval, and I will stand for any questions.
Any questions for staff? No? All right. Applicant, back at it.
Thank you. Nicolette Womack, Finley Horn, 1100 West Idaho Street, Boise, Idaho, 83702. I'll just start by saying thank you so much for your time tonight. We know it's late, so we're going to try to keep things moving for you guys. So this project is called Karcher Village. It requires a comprehensive plan amendment, annexation, zoning, special use permit, and development agreement. Similar applicant team here tonight and available for questions. And then similar applicant as the previous project specializes in several of the product types shown here. So this site is at the corner of Karcher and Celeste Ave. Before you tonight, again, is the comp plan amendment. That's to amend the land use map designation. It's currently highway corridor, and to do this project, we would need it to be high-density residential to allow this use. Highway corridor was recently amended to remove multifamily because there was some topics of concern about maintaining commercial land. But again, multifamily should be looked at parcel by parcel generally. So annexation and zoning, we're requesting to be annexed into the city of Caldwell with R3 high-density residential. Special use permit allows multifamily, and development agreement binds us to those conditions. This followed a similar timeframe, roundtable in October, GIS in February, March neighborhood meeting, and application submittal, and then we're here tonight. So we've been down a long road, and we understand this is an iterative process to receive feedback and comments, and we're happy to continue working through the process. So, future land use map again, it's the red highway corridor right now, and we're looking to do high density residential, which is to the north and to the west. And again, we need R3 zoning, which would match what is west on the west and to the north. And this is zoning map, in case you're curious tonight. And then again, this project is called Karcher Village. 4.95 acres, so almost 5 acres, 96 units, 21 one-bedroom, 54 two-bedrooms, and 21 three-bedroom units. I apologize, the site is oddly shaped. Generally, we like to do north is up, but north is west. Just anything on any side. So, parking and access, so we have 2 access points, both around Celeste. Karcher is an arterial highway, obviously, so we will not be taking an access site, and we have dedicated right-of-way and the landscape buffers to leave space for the Karcher road improvement. Again, we're meeting the parking requirements per code that are applied across the city, and that includes 2 AV parking spaces. Open space, we're meeting the open space requirement. We're working through the conditions recommended by staff, and we will ensure that we continue meeting the 10% open space requirement. Our amenities include a dog park, tot lot, pickleball, barbecue area, green space, and we have a 15-foot landscape buffer along Celeste and 30 along Karcher Road. The open space, I'll also add, does not include landscape buffers, so there's significant more green, like plant material on the site. Similar elevations with our last project. Happy to work through that with you all. And then the staff report mentioned several things: right-of-way dedication, landscape buffer, street improvements. cross-access utility subs, how we do all that. And we worked through traffic mitigation, percentages, so we're happy to do that. CIS, again, prepared by licensed professionals. It's reviewed by licensed professionals. And based on their, reviews, no mitigation is required based on the planned improvements in the area, and that's including anything that's been approved, in the area. So that all runs concurrently. Again, IPD, does have those, improvements at Cartier and Celeste coming, and this is the design that they're sharing with the public. I'll just add one more thing on schools. So we got the same letter. Everyone's getting the same letter. That letter, historically, across the valley, is to trigger the conversation about voluntary contributions. So we triggered it, like everyone else, and we agreed to comply unlike everyone else. I'll also add that we talked in that conversation with the school district about how unfortunate it is that we are not prioritizing schools in Idaho, and that it is reliant on bonding to improve schools in this area. And we and several other developers are happy to go to the state legislature and talk about this and say, we're at our max and we need to prioritize this and we need to allow legislation that will make this happen. But we can't do that in any one permit. That's a larger conversation. That's for elected officials to join the cause. So we understand how those things you guys have to consider, and again, there's hard decisions to make all around. So we are grateful for your time tonight, and we stand for any questions.
I have a quick question, and I might have heard Rob wrong, but so now if this development were to go in, you guys would be responsible for the other half of Celeste?
Yes.
Widening it?
How far up would that go?
That goes along the property line.
All the way around?
Just the property line, so it wouldn't go up to Moss.
No.
Well, it's already brought down from Moss, though, right?
No.
No?
Not that far.
There's gonna be a.
We're happy to defer to the city engineer.
Yeah.
Thank you. The improvements, typically, my name is Rob McDonald, for the record. The improvements would generally follow the frontage of the property, which would be that entire frontage along Celeste Avenue. There was, the section that the city built on Celeste North was fully widened, but then it narrows down because the city did not have the right-of-way. And so there could potentially be a gap there that's incomplete. And so the city would evaluate that and see if it's necessary for the city to approach those property owners and make an offer. There have been situations where developers have been requested to extend a little bit beyond their property just to close a gap. And so we would probably look a little bit at that. But yeah, their entire frontage would be constructed, and then this whole section of Celeste would be built out as a collector road section. Thank you.
Can I add, in those situations, are you guys using latecomers agreements to, not put the burden of the whole expansion on this property owner, or being reimbursed later?
It depends on the extent of the project. If it's an out parcel within, there have been many times where city council has required the developer to do it, even though it's not technically part of their development. If it's excessive, then the mitigation, the traffic mitigation would go toward that because it's off-site, and so we would work with the applicant on how to put that together.
Briefly, it looks like there's a typo on the first page of the staff report. On the map amendment line, it says 4.95 acres, and that's what you said. But on the consider annexation line, it says 5.95. Should they be the same?
I might add, sometimes that includes, we usually annex and rezone to, center line. So there could be a discrepancy with where center line is versus you do development within the property line. I'm not sure the exact amount.
Yeah, without looking at it, that could be, the existing property goes to the center line of the road, but after they dedicate the right-of-way, then their property is less.
Okay, so it's not a typo, it's correct.
I don't know that for sure, but that could be what it is.
Okay, and then I want to make a comment. I feel bad for the school situation, and I do agree that it is something that has to be resolved at the state legislature. but we are at a decision point right now, and, it does really have to go to them at some point. So I apologize for that.
We understand.
I have a question, not related to school. So on the overview, what is the property around this? Like, it just seems like I'm just thinking about, like, what would a future development look like? Or the one you just had?
I'm gonna get you the vicinity map, if that's okay. That one? Okay?
Yeah, that's good. So what is all that around this? And like, what?
Like to the south.
No, to the east of it.
Yeah, so it's existing, single family.
That's single family?
Yeah.
Just one.
Is it just one property?
Yeah.
Mahil, I would like to add that that is also county, right? So that is county, so they're larger parcels, so it's single family, but they're bigger properties.
But it's, okay. Is that one home or is that multiple homes?
I believe it is, 3, I could be wrong, but it's, like they're thinner parcels, and I believe it is 3.
There's 4, there's
The 2 of us plus 2 others.
They have the map.
Okay, so it's, 3. Right. Yep.
No.
2 parcels.
2 parcels.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Just 2 long skinny,
No.
3 long skinny.
Yeah.
So
2 parcels.
it's 2, you back up to, or this 2 parcels back up to you, or whatever.
2 parcels, and then there's actually an irrigation canal, that runs along the entire border right there.
Oh, okay.
So,
So
kind of
fairly separated.
separate that, and then
Yeah.
just to the other side of Celeste, down there in the corner that's undeveloped, they're putting some, what I believe is some multifamily type of unit there. That got approved, and they are adding, either, yeah, I think they're, some sort of multifamily right there.
All right. Any other questions for the applicant? No? All right, thank you. Okay, let's see. Alma, Miss Alma?
Luzinski.
Alvin Hassman, 215-2945, First East, Parma, Idaho, 83660. Sorry, I forgot last time. I don't know how you guys do this late stuff here. Kudos to you. I can easily answer the question on those 2 parcels. When we purchased it in 2005, it was a horse training facility then. The gentleman that we bought it from, who I believe was the original builder of that, the parcel that fronts what Celeste now, that was not there when we bought it in 05. He bought the back half, not half, but 2/3, if you will, of the neighbor's house. So the only house that's right there is the neighbor's house. That small cutout that you see that fronts Carter Road. That's it. Then to the left is the Dakota Crossman project that was approved, I want to say in 2008. That's going to be high density residential. The big, all of the dirt area that you see is a drilling company. And they're actually in the process of putting in, a building that is, I think, probably as tall, if not taller, than our coverall that you see. We have a 60 by 120 foot coverall arena, at the very, well, not at the back, but mid point of the property. So I don't know how big that building is, but it's a couple of stories, I would say. So that's what's around there. And up the road, within a half mile maybe, are all the 3-story, I believe those are apartment units. So anyway, I won't hit on the Clark Road again. And when we put this house on the market almost a year ago now, that was zoned highway corridor. high-density residential usage allowed. That property, when we bought it, highest and best use was what it was, a horse training facility. My husband and I unfortunately had the recent opportunity to have to pick my horse up from Idaho Equine Hospital and had to go by and visit our tenants that are there. So we were by there at about 6:30 in the evening with a horse trailer in tow. Since we can only get in and out off the Karcher, we're county now, so we can't egress off of Celeste, can't do it. Have to go out of Karcher. It took us about 10 minutes to have a big enough clearing for us to get our rig out, our 3-horse trailer out, to make a right, not a left, out of there. So clearly, the highest and best usage that it was when we bought it in 2005 is no longer. All of those parcels around you, that anything over 2.5 right now, is all being developed. All of it is. So there's, you know, it is what it is. Again, I'm not gonna, it's little, and I don't wanna, belittle the fact that, that we need for housing, but as an employer, again, not even talking about a property owner, as an employer, it would be fantastic. Our shop is in the Southside Industrial Project right there at, Arthur and, I forget the name of it, 34th. That industrial complex back there, that's where our building is. And that's our big warehouse. So that's where employees go to. And they can't find housing around here. It just doesn't exist. So, there's a desperate need for it. When ITD finishes that leg, we won't have use of that property unless there's an opening on the left. We won't have it. It just won't exist. So, I don't know what to do about that. I think that this parcel lends itself for a number of reasons, for this development. And I think it stands in line with everything that's going along Karcher Road. And as I said again, I really appreciate you guys' time, your patience, and don't envy your jobs at all. Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. All right.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
for the record, the last speaker was in favor.
yes,
And we got to mention
she
that.
was in favor. And it looks like Jim is also in favor, but he signed up to not speak.
I could say a couple, it's pretty much redundant, but.
No obligation to speak. Okay. All right.
I'm Jim Blazinski, 2945 First Line East Palm, Idaho. And, yes, I'm the owner of the property. Right now, my wife was right. When we first moved out there, so we had the same situation. We were staying in farmland. There was 30 acres to the left. We didn't put opposition for the single-family homes to go into that area. And now there's a cut across it. It totally changed the flavor of the area. Okay? It happens. We were there. We didn't stand in opposition with that. Okay? There used to be cow pastures. They used to have foxes running through my yard. And that's why we moved out of the area, so we can maintain that. This area here, there is not going to be any visible windows into residential areas on all four sides. On the right side, there's a huge area that's a buffer that is now a covered up drainage ditch. Okay? There's a huge buffer there. I think it's about 35 feet. It's right away on that. Okay? And then on the side of that, there's a well drilling place. It's a commercial business. Okay? Behind it, there's a resident way down the way. On the left side, right now, it's bare ground. And I believe it's supposed to be high density. And then you got the house in the cut across and down the ways. So you're not going to have that same impact as the other neighbors had at the property with the development. with the, we already know that we're gonna lose the front egress of that property. It's gonna come all the way up to the garage. And when if we're asked to actually increase the road ourselves, like say if we just retain that property, it's gonna take part of the house. House is very close to that fence. The property is just not the same usage as it was when we first bought it. And, we believe that things change, I had to go through Dakota Crossing with the next to me. I didn't complain, I accepted, I welcomed them. This frontage is consistent with everything else going on there right now. Matter of fact, I would hesitate to say that this part was not developed. It'll be the only parcel that does not have that usage in that, between high density, mixed commercial, mixed industrial. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we have no one signed up neutral. We have, Ms. Riggs.
Read it.
I'm sorry. I guess the first, Diane. Diane's done it.
Sorry, I'm short. My name is Diane Regis. I live at 12402 Karcher Road, Nampa, Idaho, 83651. I live about 2 houses down. I live in a 100-year-old home. My entrance is directly onto Karcher. Next to me is a well drilling company on one side, and on the other side is Hopkins Tree Farm. Behind me is my neighbor, who has I have 2 acres, just under 2 acres. He has 3 acres behind me. And to the left of that, is, the people who own the well drilling company. They have a home there, and there is another home, another family that live behind. These are all single family homes. We have negotiated with, or we're in the process of getting ready to negotiate with Highway 55, with ITD. They have advised me how much will be taken from my home. Negotiations have not started. They will be negotiating with me near the end of this year. The traffic is horrible, and it's not going to get any better. Across the road, there's 45 acres that is planning to go into a huge subdivision, and with one exit onto Karcher, possibly 2. That's in negotiations. I was advised that with the Celeste exit onto Highway 55, that will not be a stop sign. They will only be able to go to the left, or to make a right-hand turn. There will be no left-hand travel. So that's going to cause some tremendous issues. When you go north on Celeste, you run into the problem of getting onto Homedale. And as somebody mentioned earlier, there is blind spots there, and it is extremely dangerous. It is not set up at this point for the additional amount of traffic that is there now. I appreciate the fact that we may need additional homes or apartments. I just have a problem with the high density of it being next to me. And I also have a bit of a problem with I have a terrible problem with the school district. I think that we're overbuilding faster than we're able to deal with. And until Highway 55 goes in and they can get that settled, which I don't think will be until 2024, is when they told me they would be close to me. We're 2 years out. And to try and approve something now is asking a lot. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
Okay, Mr. McCain, you signed up against, but not to speak.
It's just beating a dead horse. I think we
Okay,
all get to-
all right. We'll take that. Okay, is there a vote?
This is rebuttal.
This is rebuttal. Did I say? I said that.
Yes, you did.
She did.
One thing I got right all night,
Thank you. Again, appreciate great discussion, a lot of great minds trying to figure out, how this is all gonna come together at the right time, in the, long-term plan of the city of Caldwell, so. On this exact site, it's important to note, we have some substantial right-of-way width on the west and on the south, so that provides a natural buffer with the required streetscape landscaping for code. On the east side, we have the irrigation, buffer, that's included. And then, if we could pull up our site plan, I think, maybe our PowerPoint has them all merged. So there's significant, green space, the significant amenity features in that, right-hand corner, which abuts the existing residential, use. So we understand this structure is built out, things will be changing along that corridor. In terms of highway corridor designation, originally it was when Compound was written, they included high-density residential. Things are moving forward, with not wanting to give up too much commercial. On this site exactly, due to the adjacency to Karcher, and the irrigation canal cutting things off, it'll be hard to develop that with commercial. Even if the rest of the strip gets developed, you're gonna have to build a bridge over that irrigation canal. Then the irrigation canal will have problems with that bridge, and then there'll be a disagreement, and we'll work through it all. At the same time, commercial on Celeste, would have a much larger impact than what we're talking about. So that would require, a whole different kind of traffic impact study scenario to evaluate that use. And then just lastly, happy to show the diagrams of the turn movement at Karcher and Celeste. So that blue line, if imagine you're sitting in that car, coming down Celeste Ave, and you want to go east on Karcher, you would cross 2 lanes, then you would make a big U-turn, and then you would get to proceed eastward. This is pretty common, on areas where they're not recommending signals. So you'll see this on like State Street, in, several sections of several cities. So, thank you again for your time, and I'll stand for any questions.
I have a question. Commissioner Boutros, did we review the number of parking spaces that are in this?
Yes, and I'll defer to staff again, but, this is what, is required by code, 1.5 dwelling units, 1.5 per dwelling unit, and then, we are at 145, and that includes the 2 EVs, so that's the standard amongst the city.
And how many units are there? 96?
Thank you, it's 96, 21 1-bed, 54 2-bed, 21 3-bed.
I have a question for staff, or do I need to hold that?
Do you have any more questions for the applicant? And I'm sorry, it's the same as the other one, 3 stories with multiple sides, 1, 2, 3 sides. Okay. All right. Thank you.
So my question for staff is, because the property to the east is in the county, what consideration should we, as a commission, be making for whatever future land use might occur there? Is it something that we should normally ignore, or is it something we need to consider?
I'm a little unsure of your question, but, it is, everything to the west is also, highway corridor.
I was concerned about
Is it
the...
a impact area? Where does it, or is it
Yes.
an impact area?
It is.
So anything that gets developed would have to be annexed to either into Caldwell or into, Nampa, I don't know.
So future development on the unimproved property just to the east of this, but because it looks like it's prime real estate for that, and I just wanted to understand. So thank you, Madam Chair, for answering that question. It looks like we would be able to be certain that it would be up for review as an annexation into Caldwell.
If it's city of Caldwell impact area, then I believe anything we develop has to come to the city.
So as you can see, it is, Caldwell City of Impact, and it goes, quite a few properties beyond this one.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for staff or for, we're ready to close it out, okay. Oh, and I have to enter the, PowerPoint presentation as exhibit PZ 1004. Okay, any discussion? There's no place for them to go to school.
So that story is unfortunately identical. But if you look at, so there were multiple other issues with the first development with regard to adjacency to neighbors, with regard to building materials, a lot of things that have not popped up on this one. So if we didn't have the school issue, this would look like an ideal development for this area. But because we have the school issue, it's like the same.
Excuse me, Mr. Commissioner, could you speak more into the mic?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
I don't know if we actually closed public testimony. Did we close public testimony?
I make a motion to close the public testimony.
May I add one thing before this? I would just like to point out that, this group of developers and Kinley Horn are one of the few that have worked with the school, and I know that you said it is the same issue that keeps reoccurring, but they are one of the few that has reached out and made an agreement, so, yeah.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Harmon, a second from Commissioner Byrd to close public testimony. All those in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, to close public testimony. So from my perspective, I mean, I also look at it as an employer, and I can't, there are not people who live in the community. And my issue with the last one, while I'm concerned about schools, my issue with the last one was the proximity, where it was around everything else around it. So I don't have an issue with this project. I mean, I think if we want to put conditions on it or the colors and the designs, I think we can do that. I don't have an issue with that. But, I think they can, especially when it's next to a drone, a well.
When is 55 supposed to be?
It says, 2023 is what they're saying? Earlier, he said 2023. But, 2023. Okay. They start in 2023, which is very soon. Yeah.
So my preference would be that they have some confidence that they can proceed with the project when the school infrastructure problem has an end in sight. And I'm not sure exactly how to do that. It seems like we have limited choices on approving or denying. I don't know that we could set a condition of delaying or postponing something until such time. I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah, I don't know that that's a condition that we can place on, because I don't think it's not reasonable to develop a property with an unknown condition.
Right.
So from their perspective.
So I end up still defaulting to have an unsolvable school problem, and what do we do about that?
Right. But I think it is fair to say that they have worked with the school, and I know we're saying the school didn't ask for enough, but that's what the school asked for. And, and frankly, we've had other meetings where I've had the same concern, they didn't do anything with the school. Right.
And also I think if they were willing to, even though the school only has 500 growth, they're willing to give more and advocate for like a better education for students, that would be
a more advantageous situation for the community.
Just in terms of this developer.
Well, since they're willing to work with them.
Yes.
Oh, Commissioner Green.
I forget to say. Into my.
Commissioner Green.
Okay, are there any conditions we want to add to this project? I don't think we can, I don't personally think we can add a condition about a school.
So we are gonna be forced to either, approve it or deny it.
Unless there's a different condition that he intended. I don't think there's a reasonable condition that's on the unknown time of the bonding that school board.
So we've closed we've closed testimony, but
I don't think.
Mr. Matt has
Well,
something to say.
Yeah. Are there any conditions that you all would like to put on the property, on this project?
No.
Okay. Are you sure? Okay. I mean, you're good with moving forward with the recommendation, okay. All right. Any further discussion? Is the only concern the schools, or are there other concerns? Do you have other concerns?
My only concern on this one is the schools.
I motion to open public testimony. Commissioner Green.
I second your motion.
Okay.
Did you close yet?
It's open.
We already did. We opened for you.
Madam Chair, members of the Commission, Jerome Knapp, Planning Director. In your decision-making, and I'm just dealing with schools, but this is more of a generalization, is that, in our comprehensive plan, there are goals and objectives and policies. Any deliberations or the review before you meet, go through the comprehensive plan to determine if there are goals or objectives or policies that the proposed applicant does not meet. So, in regards to Mr. Boutreau's question or his issues regarding the schools, under the school facilities and transportation section of the comprehensive plan, under coordination, policy 1-1 says, ensure adequate school facilities and services that meet the educational, social, and recreational needs of the community. That's a goal or policy that said they don't comply to.
Yes.
So I would just put that on the record so that we have something that's established within the current Congress plan.
Thank you.
I know, because I didn't realize there was two. I only knew that there was the one.
Okay, well, hustle up here.
Okay.
That's not a change. I mean, it's like that.
No, that's mixed.
Yeah.
No? Okay, sorry.
No.
All right.
1 minute.
No.
All it is traffic.
No, we got it. We got it.
Do you have there on record the deaths on Highway 55, right at that spot?
I make a motion to close public
At
testimony.
that spot.
I'm sorry, but this is a hearing procedure.
Yeah,
That is reviewed by the courts if need be.
yeah.
So we have to meet certain criteria. I know I've been a stickler about this all evening long, but we just don't want to have it process not in order.
Yes.
This is Jerome, I'm speaking.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there a motion to close? We already had a motion by Harmon and second by Commissioner Byrd to close up testimony. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. All right, any further discussion? You want to put that on the record, what Jerome just said? your concerns.
I would love to if I had it written in
I
front
think
of
it
me
was
that I could read it.
Section 3.1.
Madam Chair, Mr. Petros, if you agree with that, we have it on the record here. And we can just put that
Yes,
as,
I do, and I would like that written into the record.
Okay,
Thank you, Ms. Mayor.
all right. Okay, so with that, are we ready to move forward with the vote here? Yeah. Oh, okay, so there's three different things. There's an annexation, a comp plan amendment, an annexation, and then a special use permit. So it's gonna start with the comp plan change. Page 12. Yes, the conference plan though,
I recommend we accept the comprehensive plan analysis
for the comp plan change.
for the comp plan change.
Okay, is there a second?
I second, Commissioner Boutros, I second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Harmon, second by Commissioner Boutros. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. And then, findings of fact, 6171. So the findings of fact includes both the comp plan and the annexation.
I recommend that we, accept the findings and facts and the conclusion of law.
Commissioner Boutros, I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Harmon and a second by Commissioner Boutros for comp plan amendment and annexation, findings of fact, conclusions of law. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and a recommendation?
I recommend, the comprehensive plan map amendment based on the findings of facts and conclusion of law. The Caldwell Planning and Zoning Commission hereby recommends to the mayor and the city council the case number CPM 22-000002, a request to modify the current 2040 comprehensive plan map designation from highway corridor to high-density residential for approximately 5.95 acres as described in Exhibit R3 zone attached here to be approved.
There's a second?
Commissioner Boutros, I second.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Harmon, second by Commissioner Boutros for the comprehensive plan map amendment. Roll call. Commissioner Burns?
No.
Commissioner Harmon?
Yes.
Commissioner Boutros?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunt? Yes.
Annexation, yeah, I recommend the annexation based on the findings and facts and conclusion of law. The Caldwell Planning and Zoning Commission hereby recommends to the mayor and city council the case number ANN 22-000005, a proposed annexation of 4.95 acres. Parcels R327860000 and R327850100 with a zone designation of highway corridor for 4.9 acres and R3 high-density residential for 4.94 acres for the purpose of developing a mixed-use commercial, high-density residential and single-family residential development as Karcher Village, be approved with the conditions of approval listed below to be enumerated in the development agreement if approved.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Harmon, second from Commissioner Burns. Roll call. Commissioner Boutros?
No.
Commissioner Burns?
No.
Commissioner Harmon?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunt? Yes. Okay.
motion fails.
It fails with the tie?
If it's a tie, motion fails.
Okay. All right,
Recommend, findings, conclusions, order of decision, SUP 22-000005, the findings and facts and conclusion of law.
For a second?
Commissioner Byrne, I second the motion.
All right, motion by Commissioner Harmon, second by Commissioner, Byrne. Findings, facts, and conclusion of law. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, and then the order of decision.
Recommend order based on the findings and facts, conclusion of law, the Caldwell Planning and Zoning Commission hereby order that special use permit case number SUP 22-000005, a request to construct multifamily in highway corridor zoning is approved with the conditions of approval listed below and subject to conditions in section 10 to be enumerated in a development agreement if approved.
For a second?
Commissioner Byrne, I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Harmon, second by Commissioner Byrne for a recommendation to approve. Roll call. That's the order of decision.
Commissioner Boutros?
No.
Commissioner Byrne?
No.
Commissioner Harmon?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Yeah. Okay, and then the reason why is because of that comp plan, I assume, it's because of that reference to comp plan that was earlier referenced. You got that? Okay. All right, well, I believe that concludes our meeting today. So your motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
No, it's not that. It's a tie. Oh, for the order of decision? Both of them tie.
Either motion has to change. We have to negotiate the motion. But if it's tied twice, there's been no decision. We have to make a decision.
Okay.
Even though I've read the issue of the schools, you either agree or not agree with the decision to approve the application. This is what you have to make that decision.
Is it being recorded? Yeah.
Okay. The first motion tied.
Right.
Okay, and so it failed. The second motion tied. And it failed. I have to come up with a motion that passes before we leave this place.
Or a motion to deny, or the motion that denies.
You have to have three to one or more.
Okay. All right.
10 minutes to
Further discussion. Commissioner Boutros, because the essential school problem has not been resolved, and for consistency's sake, I voted to deny the annexation and the final approval.
There needs to be in the microphone.
I thought I was.
You're
You're in my head, I'm sorry. But for consistency's sake, I voted to deny. That doesn't change. The same logic that prevailed in the previous hearing is still applicable.
So are you saying we should do another vote?
It sounds like we have to do another vote.
All right, so we're gonna go back then to the annexation. The order of decision for the SCP is the second option, and that's what you're at, like, as the hearing body, you're able to
Well, the annexation didn't pass.
That's a recommendation.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, so the order of decision, okay. So then we need an order of decision 10.3. Does somebody want to make another motion?
I'm sure I'm gonna phrase this correctly. Commissioner Boutros,
You just read it right there.
for the order of decision based on the findings of fact and conclusions of law, Caldwell Planning and Zoning Commission hereby orders that special use permit, case number SUP 22-000005, a request to construct multifamily in the HC Highway Corridor zoning is denied with the conditions of approval listed below and subject to conditions in section 10 to be enumerated in the development agreement.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Boutros, second by Commissioner Byrne to deny the recommendation, order of decision. Roll call. Roll call. Commissioner Harmon.
No.
Commissioner Byrne.
Yes.
Commissioner Boutros.
Yes.
Commissioner Henson. No.
Yeah. All right.
I just think if we don't approve this, we're never gonna approve another project in the city.
Well, that's what I
I
feel
mean,
like
that,
you're
you
trying to
know.
go for here. I mean, you're going for not wanting to approve any more projects over the school thing. Let the schools make their own choice. Let them work this through. They're obviously, understand what you're doing. You can't.
I think that the choice is out of the hands of the schools.
It is not out of the hands of the schools. Make them be responsible for what they do too. They made a decision, they made an agreement with them, they obviously want to work with developers. That's not your choice to do.
But the arrangement that they made with the developers doesn't solve the
But
problem.
that's not your choice. Do you work for the school? I need to ask that question. Do you work for the school?
We are the.
I asked the question, do you work for the school?
I do not.
Okay, then, that's all I need to know,
We are
because
the
you can't
planning and
advocate
zoning
for it.
commission.
This isn't a place to bring your agenda.
This is the planning, we have a planning function.
Well, I don't disagree, we have a planning function, I think I've demonstrated throughout, that I do worry about density and the impact of schools and, having an orderly transition of growth. But I also think though that, there are people moving here and housing prices are untenable. I can't recruit to my facility for people who live in California anymore because their cost of living is so high. So I can't provide essential services I need to be able to provide to my organization that I work for because I can't hire people because the cost of living is too high. And I think that if we take the position that there's no more growth, we're just not gonna build anymore, especially, and I think I have been, I don't think you could look at a record and say I haven't been pretty, conservative in terms of the growth. But when there is a location, which this is a location, it's right off Archer Road, there's no this is a totally undevelopable land. And, it is a good spot for this kind of use, and I appreciate the timing of it. It may not work with the timing of, when the schools are gonna have more capacity but that's true for everything in the world right now. We don't have, that's true for everything right now. And for us, I just don't think that we can, especially when the school district agreed, said to the developers, well, okay, so pay us $500 a door, we'll support the project. I don't know why we're saying we know better than the school district does. And I think that's what we're saying. And I think that by denying this project, we're saying we basically want no more growth in the city of Caldwell. And I think that that's not, I'm not saying that.
Not reasonable.
And that's, I think that housing prices, speaking this to a poll, but, housing prices are too high. We don't have enough real estate. We don't have high density. We don't have housing for, we need more housing. And,
Madam Chair.
yeah.
That may be the case, but remembering the previous discussion that their ultimate responsibility lays with the state legislature. And,
The ultimate responsibility is with the school district, and the school district
No.
met with them and said, you can decide to talk to the school, we'll support it.
the school district is trying to be responsive to state laws that require them to enroll students, that have maximum occupancy limitations, and that require them to use bonds for capital improvements. When the state legislature fixes that, then there will be a path forward. If the state legislature doesn't, and if the school districts go to the courts for resolution of these conflicting laws, if a court should levy property taxes involuntarily on that school district in order to fund the necessary building of schools, that cost of living is also going to go high. They're already deeply in debt. They have no current way to raise money to build more schools. And when we add to that problem, we're essentially boxing the school district into a corner that they may not even realize they're being boxed into yet.
Well, if they don't realize it, then
And
they shouldn't be running a school.
So Commissioner Hines, you made a point.
Let's just pause for a moment. Mr. Matt?
This would ultimately go to the city council.
Right.
But decision can't go to city council unless there is a decision. Fate of the schools can come at another time. I'll tell you about something that's coming up pretty soon that you might want to be interested in going to. But someone has to compromise to make a decision so it goes to the city council.
And I think it's a good point, because I think that if the city council wants to not have any more growth in Caldwell, then I think that should be the city council's decision. I think for us as the planning and zoning, which are really about land use and orderly growth and development that makes sense.
That's your mission. That's your mission.
Yeah, if that's what and I think for us to say we're basically going to never approve another project in Caldwell, that is not our decision. That is the city council's decision.
So you need to run for city council.
Unless it's necessary for the goal of orderly growth.
Question?
Well, but we're gonna have,
Then we're gonna sit here till 5 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Commission,
So get comfortable.
and your friend.
Because, listen, you can't come in here with an agenda for schools. That's all you said in the last few meetings. It's all school. That's why I wanna know, are you on the board? Are you working for the schools? I didn't know because the agenda is school-driven completely, and that's not what you're here for.
Community growth driven, it's not.
Well, it's school.
I would ask you, Commission,
wait, one second.
I would ask the Commission to search and make a motion that you can get 3 individuals to agree on. That's all you need. After that, I need 5 minutes of your time.
So is there any way that either of you guys would agree to this project?
Okay, good question.
Like, is there any condition that would be acceptable for you to agree to the project?
That the school issue gets resolved.
But what does that mean?
It means that there is funding in place and a plan to build the school.
Can't be, man, that's not even reasonable, right?
Okay.
It's not reasonable.
All right.
It's not reasonable. Do you wanna go to the
If
state
the kids
legislature?
get loaded on a school bus because the school is obligated to enroll them, is there a place to take the children? That's a very
Let the school figure it out, not you.
They don't have a legal way to do that.
You don't need it, though.
Yeah.
Don't either.
Yeah.
There would have to be legally
Yeah.
defined where there was less
unit, and
Even for the area, it's a big piece of property that can't be used for anything, you know. It's not looking at anybody, it's not next to anybody. It's right on
Like
Carter.
some of the like 2-in-1s to be changed to the 3s or something like that, where maybe more families could live in there. There still are a lot of families living there.
Would a condition requiring the school to be at the city council hearing be sufficient to get their comments, where they could make comments in person to respond to these? That, you would vote yes? If you condition the school to be here on a city council?
Yep.
Well, we will get a say yes. If the city council had to come and support it at the city council, if the school district had to come and support it at the city council, would that be an adequate condition for you to support it?
So Commissioner Harmon made a really good point a few minutes ago that I don't know how much he intended to make that good point, but it was about the ability of the school district to understand growth and plan for this. And I believe that they don't have that. I believe they are educators. They are not planners. And in fact, previous decisions appear to have been made without looking at trend analysis, without looking at the cumulative effects of additional developments being approved within their district. And so to say that we may understand the problem better than the school district does is true.
The planning and zoning department, as well as members of city council, have met with the school district and the school. We've met with the superintendent and representative who writes our staff who have, and we have met and they have agreed. This is why they started writing these letters in the first place. They are aware of the growth and they're trying to get ahead of it by putting these letters out.
So the evidence I offer that they're not actually good at this is the fact that they accepted a $500 a door contribution, which doesn't solve the problem.
But we don't know what their calculus is. Like, we don't know, like, for them, you know, they say, so we have, you know, that's the cost of affordable, or that's the cost of busing, or that's the cost, you know, because, you know, the solution for school funding at the legislature is going to be impact fees. So basically what they've just effectively done is pay an impact fee. So I feel like what the school district has essentially done is what we would love for the legislature to do, which is assess impact fees for all new development. So this is what they've essentially done, is done an impact fee.
At 5 cents on the dollar of what it's actually gonna cost?
We don't know that. We don't know the school district budgeting. I mean, I don't, you know, I mean, this is what they asked for. So I just don't.
Okay.
It's not an opinion.
Commissioner Green, so I would want the color scheme to be different because again, dark colors absorb heat. There's no need for that. There needs to be plenty of vegetation around. I like that there are areas where they can recreate, and also if it was modified where there was a few more 3-room units instead of equal to 1-room units. I think that would be more beneficial for the area as well.
So can I ask you about that? Because in my opinion, the more one-bedroom units you have, the less likely you are to have a family with kids. That's the whole problem. And the more likely you're going to have.
So we have the families coming in and if education is going to be adjusted in the future and if they are at the city council meeting and supporting it, then I think that would be good because there are still families coming in, not just individuals or couples.
But I would take the position though also that we need workforce too.
I agree. I'm not going to take away all of the one unit.
Well, what was I don't remember what the distribution was. It was like 18.
1 and 3 were equal. And then
Right, so 18.
So maybe adjust a couple of the 2-room ones to 3-bedroom or something. On average, I think they just have like 1.5.
Yeah, but I don't know because people didn't have roommates. I mean, Yeah.
Madam Chair.
Okay, so, but the conditions, change the color scheme to be a more
just a lighter
toned color scheme.
Yes, so dark absorbing a lot of heat.
Okay, that's more reflective, I guess, is that right? Yeah. And,
The school board, whoever represents.
School board representative at the city council meeting in support. And, you know, I agree, I actually thought the open space on this project is, I think it's very nice. Like,
I really
all
like
is
that.
where it is, I thought it was actually very, I thought that was very nice, so.
One that will help take away the impact on other green
Yeah,
spaces that we already
exactly,
have, that's important.
so really, so lighter materials, school board rep and city council, anything else? Okay, all right,
I'm reading it.
okay, you got this.
Oh,
Okay.
I want to make one more comment.
Okay.
On two different hearings, Joey Palmer, who is the Valley View School District representative that they sent to the meetings, provided testimony in favor of the two developments, and he articulated their acceptance of the financial deals. In one case, they offered them $2,000 per door. In the other case, they offered them $500 per door. In both cases, he said that they took it because they thought it was the best they could get, and he knew it was inadequate.
Okay.
There.
Okay.
So order, based on the findings and facts and conclusion of law, the Caldwell Planning and Zoning Commission hereby orders that special use permit case number SUP 22-000005, a request to construct multifamily in the highway corridor zoning is approved with the condition of approval
Listed below, plus.
listed below, plus, lighter reflective material, school board rep at city council, in support.
All right, is there a second?
Second motion.
Thank you. All right, with a motion from Commissioner Herbert, second from Commissioner Burns, roll call. Commissioner Boutros,
No.
Commissioner Harmon,
Yes.
Commissioner Burns, yes. Commissioner Hunsaker. Yes. Yes.
You can go.
What's 5 minutes? Oh, we're done, okay. All right, adjourn, motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I second the
All
motion.
right.
Staying till the end, my brain hurts.
Thanks for your time. Sorry about that. No, you're fine. I totally missed it. You're still back.
Okay. That's a two-day hearing, so they're gonna look at the recording.
Hey, wait a second. I just gave you guys the name, that's it.
Oh, just doing this?
Yeah, don't worry.
No, I'm gonna go all the way around, I just wasn't gonna go in between.
It's on the website.
On the go to Studio Caldwell website.
Thank you. Okay, thanks for the good work, Jill, thank you guys.
I'm sorry, I have to say something.
Oh, yeah, you're good, guys.
No.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for your help.
Thank you for everything.
You guys.
Thanks everyone for the time. You're welcome. You said it was on the city of Caldwell directory?
You can't vote twice.